Hey guys, OG Albini here, bringing you guys another Draft League movie video. Today we're going to be going over my APA Classic Season 23, I want to say, which is crazy to say out loud. Run. This is a league that's kind of run by me and some other friends and things like that. Really a bunch of old APOGs and really a lot of just goons and stuff like that. It's not the most serious league in the world, but it was my first league of Generation 9. It just recently finished, but it was my first league of Generation 9, and, I really liked my team. I thought it was a really fun squad, so, I wanted to show off the run to you guys. If you guys do enjoy today's movie video, be sure to drop a like on the video, as well as subscribe to the channel. We are on our way to 2,000 subscribers, which is also crazy to say out loud. If you could help me out along that journey, I would really appreciate it a ton, and, yeah, with that being said, we can kind of jump on into at least like the draft breakdown. I'm not going to do like a crazy long draft analysis or anything like that. I just kind of wanted to show you what we drafted, why we drafted, kind of how they, mix together and work together and things like that. And yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. So going into this, first off, the Terra rules of the draft, we can make up to, I think we had like Terra points, but the way I did my Terra points, which you probably can tell by the thumbnail, I can only Terra one Pokemon, and I can select one type for it. Now, this was early gen. We didn't really, know how we were going to approach Terra yet. I'm seeing a lot more free Terra options with just, the more broken mons being banned from Terraing. In particular, our Captive, but we'll talk about that throughout the season. But I had, 8th pick in my draft board, 7th pick, so I was pretty deep. I wasn't expecting to get anything great, but New Toy Syndrome just smiled upon me because everybody above me wanted to draft new things, which is fair, first League of the Gen. I was able to get a Pokemon that really should not have fallen to me under any circumstances, even if you want to try new things. That's going to be Pult. I mean, it's the king of the format for a reason. This Pokemon is so unbelievably good with its great speed tier, great mixed attacking stats, incredible dual stab, 3 great abilities as well. Really 2, Third Body Infiltrator, but who knows, First Body can come up clutch. And then just an immense move pool. You can see this whole thing. Plus, on top of this, we did not think to ban Terra on Pult. So I am Terra Ghost Pult. Now, what does Terra Ghost do for me? It's going to allow me to run physical or mixed sets much more efficiently. Pult obviously has a higher attack stat, but you typically see it as a special attacker because it doesn't have a good, reliable physical ghost stat. It has Phantom Force, which is a 2-turn move, and that's not great in competitive Pokemon where people are switching, right? So Terra Blast is going to give me a really strong Ghost stab option from the physical side to where I can run Choice Band sets, I can run Dragon Dance sets and things like that much more efficiently. Or if I'm running Spec sets or Willow Hex sets, Terra Ghost is going to infinitely power up those hexes and make them very, very strong, very tough to deal with. But Pult is a very explanatory mon. If you've watched Draft before, you know why Pult is so good and why it was banned in a lot of Gen 8 leagues and why it's banned in a lot of Gen 9 leagues and things like that. It's an incredible Pokemon, and we got it very, very late, and I'm very excited. I mean, this coverage, the speed tier, the U-turn, the status moves, I mean, it's an incredible Pokemon. I'm really excited. On top of that, we got what I think is probably one of the best pairings for it in Paldea decks right now, in Great Tusk, in the beginning of round 2, which is also just, chef's kiss, amazing. Now, what does Pult struggle with? Pult struggles with normals and darks that resistance Ghost stab, right? Tusk kind of just invalidates that, just altogether. I mean, with the ground fighting stab, we're going to be, and even some steel types might, want to try and check it. We're going to rip through any checks that Pult may have, and then even fairy types, if they're running Fizz Def for Great Tusk, they're getting blown up by Shadow Balls from Pult, and vice versa as well. If they're running Spadef for Pult, if it's a spec set they're worried about, then Tusk is ripping through them too. Or even if we're physical on both of them, we can kind of use one to overwhelm the check for the other, which is awesome. Great Tusk was one I really, really want to try this gen, in conjunction with its amazing dual stabs in either Earthquake Close Combat or Headlong Rush. Obviously is a more stronger option. It's a great rocker. It gets knockoff, which is very valuable this gen. And then we have great coverage in obviously Stone Edge, knockoff, Iron Head, Ice Spinner, Play Rough, which is cool, Mega Horn. Rapid Spin is a great spinner. It's taunt, it gets bulk up. It's just an incredible Pokemon. I really do love Tusk, and after the season it was affirmed that this is going to be a Pokemon I'm going to draft all the time this generation, but we'll obviously see that as we continue through this movie in this season. Then we have a Azumarill. You guys know, if you guys watch my Smogon run, things like that, I think the Azumarill is the truth this gen. I really do think that it is the best fairy in the format right now, just because it checks the entirety of the top of the meta, especially all the broken things we allowed in this season. I mean, we're playing Flutter Mains this season. that's probably actually the one it doesn't check very well. But other than that, it checks Valiant, it checks Champout, it checks Chiyu, it checks Roaring Moon, it checks Opposing Dragapult, it checks so many, and again, there's a million other things that it checks towards that top end of the tier list. So well, whether it be with Rest Talk variants, Assault Vest variants are great, and we can still rock out with Choice Band and Velodrum sets to like really do a lot of damage. We can rock out with like, you know, Perish Trapping sets. Did we keep Whirlpool? No, we didn't. So Perish Trapping sets aren't going to be a thing, it's just Perish sets in general, but we have Thick Fat and Sap Surfer has great defensive abilities as well, but we're typically going to be running Huge Power, to be completely honest. Great coverage, it gets Encore, which is a great tool. It also got access to Trailblazer's gen as a way of boosting its speed, which is pretty cool. It also lets it break through bulky waters pretty well. So things like Rotom Wash aren't as reliable of a check anymore and things like that, because we can boost our speed and potentially to a KO depending on spread, all that good stuff. So really excited about his room roll. Next up though, I wanted to grab a steel type. I really felt like a steel type was going to be important to grab in this gen, and there's not a lot of steals or good steals and good bulky waters, which is why we got Azu this early. And that fairy's going to roll compress. Plus we get a little bit more roll compression with our next pick in King Gambit. Now I won't lie to you, I was a little bit nervous going into drafting with this thing. I know it's incredible in OU right now, but that's largely with Terra, because Dark Steel is pretty tough. Having that 4x fighting weakness is pretty tough, to be completely honest. But we have things for fighting types, obviously. But this Pokemon, it's insanely bulky. It's insanely strong. It has two great abilities in Defiant and Supreme Overlord. We can rock out with Swords against sets. It's also a rocker, which is great. Takes a little bit of pressure off of our Great Tusk to be a stealth rocker every single week. So King Gambit's going to be able to help us out with that. Sucker for Punch for priority. We can Thunder Wave and pair things. And again, it's really going to be like just like a Rocks 3 attacks, SD 3 attacks, or a 4 attack set. AV is great. Resist Berry is great. It's very, very bulky. And then you'd be surprised, there's a lot of fighting type moves that you 4x week 2 and you think you should die to, but you actually eat up because of the 100, 120, 85 bulk spread. So yeah, it can be a little bit explodable with its low speed, but again, we have ways around that. I think our team accents Gambit well. I think Gambit accents our team well as well. It gives us link for bulky psychics outside of Pult, which is nice. It gives us link for fairies to break through them. Now we don't resist fairy, but we kind of resist fairy depending on which one it is, which is nice. Speaking of resisting fairy and having to really beat down fairy types, I'm really surprised this Pokemon lasted so long, because I think it's incredible in this format. It's incredible in this team in particular, and that is going to be Glamora. Now, if you don't know what Glamora does, typically in OU, you're going to see it setting up Stealth Rock and Spikes. Its ability Toxic Debris, setting up T-Spikes. It's going to Mortal Spin for Hazard Control, which is great because we only have our Rapid Spin on our Tusk, so it gives us another option for that. And it's going to be like an annoying Sash Hazard Lead, which it can do great. Don't get me wrong. It is very solid at that. But I think in draft in particular, I think that like offensive Glamora variants are incredible. With that 130 base special attack, Rock Poison's a great dual step on top of having moves like Earth Power, which is going to hit really the typings that resist Rock and Poison, especially in like Steel types and things like that. We get Energy Ball and Dazzling Gleam. We get Spiky Shield as a cool option as well. We already have all the hazards we talked about. Mortal Spin for removal. We get dual screens if we really want to run dual screens. Like there's even I think just get Memento. Yeah, it even gets Memento. So like this Pokemon is incredibly versatile, or at least more versatile than I think people would like to give it credit for, which I think is really awesome. Next up, I want to grab a Ghost Immunity, and I kind of wanted to, you know, start filling out my speed tiers a little bit. We go from Pulp all the way down to Great Tusk right now. I want something around that 100 mark. And I ended up grabbing Staraptor, which is an interesting Pokemon. It's really hard to fit on drafts a lot of times, I feel, but I do feel it's a pretty good Pokemon. With Reckless, Double Edge, and Brave Bird are just absolute nukes, and then you have Close Combat as great coverage on top of that for Rocks and Seals, which is really, really valuable as a normal flying type. You have Intimidate as a secondary ability as well, but you can U-turn around. Can we defog on this? It can't. It lost Defog and Roost, which I actually did not know it lost Roost for a long time. Like, I had no idea that Staraptor lost Roost, so that was pretty unfortunate. But regardless, we're just going to be clicking Brave Bird, Close Combat, Double Edge, U-turn every time, most games anyways. Maybe a Quick Attack is going to be mixed in there. Maybe a Facade for some reason. Maybe even an Acro, or a Final Gambit is a great option as well. It's like a Scarf Final Gambit lead, and really taking something out with a decently high HP stat, depending on what's going to be leading into us. So, yeah, that's going to be Raptor. Now, something, if you look at my team right now, I really struggle with a good bulky water, man. I really do. My way of beating them right now are Azumarill and Dragapult, which is a little bit scary, so I want something that really just beat down Fat Waters. And that's going to be another Pokemon I've just been spamming the Shannon Road and Mo. Again, it's Smog Tormon that I've drafted, and I've drafted in a few other leagues at this point as well. Just a really solid bulky water check. It's very good at beating all of them, which is awesome. We can Volt Switch around, gives us more momentum. Volt switches are pretty much uncontested because we beat every ground type anyways as well. And this also gives us a really solid ground check, which again, our team really struggled with. So I think Rotom was a really solid pickup right here. And again, it very freely Volt switches around on everything because the things that block Volt switch get nuked by Leaf Storm. So unless they know our choice and they can make like a ballsy call or something like that, we can pretty freely always Volt switch and get into our Dragapult, Great Tusk, Glamora, King Gambit, Azumarill, like all those scary offensive threats we have above us right here. It's a very offensive team if you haven't picked up on that already. But it's a really, really solid Pokemon. Can nasty plot up, it can dual screen, it can be a great Scarfer. Trick is a great option. Lots of status in Thunderwave and Will-O-Wisp, so yeah, lost Pain Split and Defog, which is pretty unfortunate, but not something that we can't deal with at the very least. Then I wanted to, again, raise those speed tiers a little bit. We have base 100, and then we go all the way up to pull. So I wanted at least something around 110, and we got just that, Lycanroc Dusk. Another great breaker. Again, very, very offensive team, but I think that's kind of just where the meta is leaning right now. And we got Lycanroc Dusk right here. Really strong Tough Claws boosted Cell Rocks. It can close combat through pretty much everything. Stone Edge, Crunch, Play Rough, Psychic Fang, Sucker Punch, Zen Headbutt, even Trailblaze, which is cool. It can Source Dance if we found the opportunity. It's another strong offensive rocker. It's just a really strong Pokemon in general. It's hard to position, but I think we have enough momentum on this team to get in Lycanroc consistently and just start clicking some buttons. So definitely really excited about Lycan. And lastly, I won't lie to you, I picked this thing up in Cloyster because I thought it kept Rapid Spin. I did not learn until about week 5 or something like that it no longer gets Rapid Spin. So Cloyster was a bit of an unfortunate add to the team. I won't lie, it doesn't fit super well, but it does give me like a cheesy Shell Smash option to set up and win, especially with like T-Spikes and, you know, Spikes and all the hazard support that we have, and how strong our team was offensively. If we can find the position to Shell Smash up with the Cloyster, it's going to do a lot of damage, especially with that skill link added on top with Ice Cold Spear and Rock Blast. It didn't lose those moves. I think it did lose. It also lost Explosion, which is a bit unfortunate for like hazard sets. Again, it's just kind of a mediocre spiker now, which we already have. So this thing is either going to be brought defensively with its really high defense stat, checking, you know, potentially like physically offensive Dragon Dancers and things like that. But other than that, it's mostly here to just kind of set up and, you know, maybe cheese a game or two. But yeah, that is going to be our draft. I think it's about time to jump into week 1. Alrighty guys, week 1 comes along and we got a Titan. Week 1, we got the legendary Age Gamer moment, Mr. Walt here. He has a pretty interesting team. We have a Sand Offense squad. I believe it's Terra Dark Houndstone, which I believe he changed afterwards to Terra Fighting, which is smart because I think if you're Terra Fighting Houndstone, it's probably the best Terra type for it, if not Ghost. But he's Terra Dark with the ability to run Last Respects with T-Tar, obviously, Meowscarada, Armarouge, Breloom, and Baxcalibur, which is a big threat. Now, let's go ahead and show off what we're rocking with this week. We're rocking out with a Safety Goggles Dragapult with Dragon Darts, U-Turn, Sucker Punch, and Terra Blast. Terra Ghost, obviously, we're pretty physically offensive. Safety Goggles is going to allow us to pivot into the Breloom very well. If you look at his team, especially the team that he brought, he does not have a Dragon Dart switch in. And really, once that T-Tar is chipped down, he doesn't have a Terra Blast switch in either. So Terra Blast Ghost is going to be great. Sucker Punch is a way of, you know, potentially revenging a weakened Houndstone if it's under Sand and either Scarfed or wants to click Shadow Sneak or something of the sorts. We'll be able to deal with it accordingly that way. And yeah, it's just an overall very strong mon. Or like a +2 Armarouge if it gets like a weak armor boost on us or something of the sorts. Then we have a pretty physically offensive Great Tusk for Body Press, Rest, Sleep Talk, Earthquake. Just a solid check overall to the the regular T-Tar, sorry. And I'm pretty sure there's something on the bench that it was here to check as well, but it's a great check to T-Tar. T-Tar cannot do anything to us, and otherwise it's actually very scary against our team. So I think this Rest Talk set is going to be very solid in checking it. Then we have a Staraptor here. It's really just kind of here to serve as a pivot into the Houndstone, to, you know, have a Ghost immunity, so where that like a Choice Scarf or a Choice Band set can't thrive and pop off very well. We're just 4 attacks though, just to kind of do as much damage as humanly possible, really chip things down. Then we have our King Gambit. We are Chople Berry this week, Iron Head, Sucker Punch, Swords Dance, and Low Kick. Chople helps us out for like a superpower T-Tar, helps us out for a body pressing, what do you call it, Houndstone. It helps us out for a low kicking Meowscarada. Or if we need to live a hit like a Mach Punch from Breloom or something of the sorts, it's going to be very solid in that regards. Sucker Punch is a great tool this game for like boosted Baxcalibur, Armarouge, and the Houndstone. And then Iron Head Low Kick just kind of hits everything else very hard. Then we have our Focus Sash Lead Gilmore. I know I kind of talked up how good it is offensively, where it is very strong offensive in this matchup, but also Walt doesn't have any room to removal on this team. I don't know if he did in his draft in general, but at least the team that he brought, he has no removal. So we get up a spike and get hit with a move and get our T-spike up. We're going to be in a really, really good spot. There's also no ground up poison. So unless he's, and everything's on the ground. So unless he's boots on something or like poison heal like Breloom, then he's not going to really be able to deal with those T-spikes super well. Then we have a Resto Chesto, 3 attacks. Azu, pretty offensive. Player of Superpower, Aqua Jet, and Rest. Rest is just to keep ourselves decently healthy against this team. It's going to be our main Baxcalibur check, but it's also a great means of revenging things like T-Tar, really weakened Houndstone, or as well as the Armor if it starts getting boosted up and, you know, getting a little bit scary. I figured Aqua Jet would be a little bit better than, like, Liquidation this week, if that makes any sense. So, yeah, with that being said, we can go ahead and jump on into this game. I am going to lead off with my Focus Sash Lead Glamora doing what it's supposed to do. In turn 1, we're going to see Meowscarada lead. If you look at my team actually very much so struggles with Meow. I don't switch into dual status with low kick at all. So my decision right here was, yeah, a spike would be great, but if he attacks me right here, I at least get up a T-spike, and what I'm going to be allowed to do is I'm allowed to get off a Sludge Bomb, either kill this thing, bring it down to Sash, and then still have the opportunity to potentially, you know, get a poison and knock it out, and be able to get a big trade this first turn. And again, I'm okay with just the T-spike right here, if it means trading for the Meowscarada that I don't do both. This also covers like a taunt set if he wants to try and taunt and stop me from setting up a bunch of hazards. That also works as well. So I am going to stay in and attack this thing. I obviously live because of my Sash, but I live this hit naturally anyways, even though he is a Life Orb variant, which means he definitely gets to go down right here, which is awesome. T-spike up on his side of the field, Glamora gone. Out comes Baxcalibur, and we're going to see it's actually not a Boots variant, which makes this so much less scary, because I know he's going to slowly be put in range of a Azumarill, or Sucker Punch from Gambit, as well as Sucker Punch from Pult, and things like that. So what I'm actually going to do is just sack this Glamora off. I'm going to elect to get up a Spike if he wants to stay in and set up. Again, I'm not super worried. That's what Azu is here for, and we have the Resto Chester to get healthy a little bit later on. He also doesn't have a Fairy Resistance, not Armor Rouge. I am going to click a Spike here as he does DD up, but again, I'm completely fine with that. He is going to Iron Head and take me out, but again, he's not Terra, so I know that that's his best way of hitting a Azumarill. So as long as I don't get flinched, I'm pretty okay. He does Iron Head, doesn't do much damage, and we're able to play rough, knock him right out. Perfect. Spike and 2 T-spikes up right now. Breloom's going to come in. We're actually going to see that it is not going to be a Poison Heal set, and it does go for the Spore right here. So getting into my Pult right here with the safety goggles, really coming up clutch, bringing that item, because it's going to allow me just immense offensive momentum. And this game is almost unlosable from this point because of how much offensive pressure I have up and how much hazards I have on the opposing side, which you can't see for some reason. Next up, Tyranitar is going to come out, but like I said, there's no Dragon Resist on this team, and this in conjunction with T-Spike is a easy, clean 2-hit KO. I am going to U-turn out right here, just to have the best possible positioning into something like the Great Tusk, if that wants to, the Houndstone, if that wants to come in, because I know I'm going to be forced out otherwise, and it just makes it a little bit easier. I go into Tusk because it beats anything not Breloom. It even eats up hits from Houndstone at this point because we're pretty physically defensive, and we still have the Raptor too. So this is going to force him out into Breloom, which again, kind of just allows me to go free Pult again, and I'm completely fine with that. I also don't have to worry about Sand Chip as well with the safety goggles, which wasn't really the intended purpose, but it definitely helps out. You see, we even lived a 5-hit there pretty easy, so I wasn't super worried. Don't have to worry about Rock Punch, and I don't even have to worry about Mach Punch or Rock Tomb, just because of the fact that I'm Clear Body, so my stats can't be dropped, which is awesome. I Terra Blast and Terra Blast Ghost, or I Terra and Terra Blast Ghost, knocking out the Breloom, forcing in the Houndstone right here, but again, I kind of have Walt in a pretty tough position here. I'm going to go into my Staraptor and pivot in on this last respects, take the hit very well. Sand is also going to end, making this thing just really a non-factor outside of sneaking and picking off my Pult that way. So I'm just going to Brave Bird right here, no reason not to at this point. Gonna bring this thing down super low, and to not sack it off because it's still a ghost immunity, which could help. I don't know. Diff wise, I'm gonna pivot into my Azumarill right here. Armor Rouge is gonna be knocked out due to the poison. Out comes the what do you call it, Houndstone. I'm gonna make kind of a little saucy stunt play here and go into my Great Tusk expecting a crunch. I didn't really need to, but I thought it was funny. We're gonna take the crunch really easy. It's gonna take a little bit of chip, and then we're gonna go ahead and take another crunch as he's probably choice. Based on that, looks like Choice Scarf, and we're gonna be able to knock him out with a body press and take home a nice convincing 5-0 dub week 1. GG to well, I think we played well this game. I think we played really well. We were able to keep offensive pressure and momentum, and doing Pult things and really breaking through this team with that safety goggles pivot in, and yeah, we were able to do a lot. There's no hazard pressure on my side too, which also really helped my team. I think not have to worry about getting chipped down. I can pivot a lot freer. So yeah, that was a quick one. Only 7 minutes. We can go ahead and jump on to week 2 though. Alrighty, week 2, we're going up against Hayes, good buddy of mine. He also uploads YouTube content. I'm actually going to link everybody that I play this season that uploads YouTube content, because there's actually a fair few. I don't think anybody's going to be uploading this season, but everybody that uploads content in general, I'll link in the description. Definitely go check him out. But Hayes is a really scary team right here. He has a Sun-Moon offense team. This team is really nasty, I won't lie. We have Scoville and Torkoal as like the main Sun core, but then we have threats like Goldango, Roaring Moon, the other Azumarill, and then Slitherwing. Really, everything on this team just is so scary offensively into mine, but I think we have a pretty cool squad to take it on here this week. Let's go ahead and show it off. Oops, I'm not like clicked on it. First up, we have a heavy-duty boots Dragapult here. There were some spikes on his bench that he didn't end up bringing that I was a little bit worried about. But we are Infiltrator with Draco Meteor, Will-O-Wisp, U-Turn, and Shadow Ball. Nice and special set this week. I think it's very, very solid. Wisping things like the moon as it tries to set up. It is a Terra Steel moon. So wisping that thing is going to be very, very important in my opinion. Same thing with something like a Slitherwing that we don't immediately kill. It's going to be nice to burn that guy. But realistically, we kind of just click Shadow Ball into this team very, very freely. He doesn't have a Ghost Resist that he ended up bringing. So we can kind of just click buttons here in this game. We have an offensive AV Great Tusk with Headlong Rush, Close Combat, Knockoff, and Rapid Spin. The beauty of playing into Sun with Great Tusk is that you're giving me Sun to click a damn button, which is really, really cool. With the Rapid Spin up, we outspeed everything minus the Scovillain or a +1 Moon or something of the sorts. So that's going to be really nice. We kind of just click buttons here. Slitherwing is not a check if the Sun is up, which is obviously really, really nice for us. And we have an AV Kingambit with lots of EVs in lots of places, and this was months ago, so I actually could not tell you what they were there for. But we are Cowtalk, Leaf, Sucker Punch, Iron Head, and Low Kick. Actually a very solid check to Moon. We take like +1 EQs very, very well, and we're able to kind of just click buttons and nuke things. We are AV as a somewhat pivot into Goldango. Maybe Choppel would have been a little bit better in hindsight, but in general we can take like a Shadow Ball into a Focus Blast or something of the sorts, and he does have to kind of hit that Focus Blast and play around Sucker and a lot of things, so it's a good deterrent to the Goldango. Oh, excuse me. Then we have a Life Orb, Lycanroc, Stone Edge, Close Combat, Solrock, and Stalrock. Pretty simple stuff. We're adamant this week just because we can be. Solrock's going to be a very useful tool into things like Azu, into things like Slitherwing, and especially into things like Scovillain. It gives us an Oko on Scovillain, which we actually just do not have a switch into. We do not deal with Scovillain at all. So this is going to be a great means of revenging, and if we get up rocks, it's going to be awesome. Yeah, Stone Edge is also going to rip through his Rapid Spinner and Torkoal, so pretty free rocks if we can find the opportunity to get him up. Then we have a Fizdef, Rocky Helmet, Rest Talking Azumarill. This is going to be our main Slither, as well as especially Roaring Moon check. It can't really do all too much to us, even with the Terra, what do you call it, Steel. We can kind of eat up those hits very, very well. Then lastly, we have a Shuka Berry offensive Glamora. We are Sludge Bomb, Earth Power, Power Gem, and Spike. Shuka is to help out with things like the Torkoal very, very well. Then we can kind of just click a button. We can also, I think, live a hit from Scovillain, even if it's Life Orb, which is awesome. Pretty sure we might die to a Roaring Moon EQ, but maybe we can live a Slitherwing. I don't know. We'll see. Definitely a really good Pokemon and really strong offensively. We were only Sludge Bomb in a lot of these games as well to like kind of bait poisons on things and things of the sort. But he didn't actually bring anything that we're probably going to be clicking Sludge Bomb into this week anyways. It's mostly going to be probably Power Gem and Earth Power, but yeah, that is basically the squad. We can go ahead and jump on into the battle itself as we again see what Hayes ended up bringing. I am going to lead off with my Azumarill this game because I personally feel like into like Azu matchups and teams like this, Azu Great Tusk, you're probably going to see like a choiced Moon or like some kind of U-turning set, and I wanted to put him on the back foot if you want to lead that initially. He is going to lead off. Here's Goldango. Sorry, jeez, I'm yawning. And right here, I know I can take any one hit very, very easily, but I don't want to take damage on my Azumarill, so I'm going to make a mid-ground pivot into my Great Tusk because I could take any hit from this thing, as well as the fact that I'll live 2 Scarf hits, and I take a Thunderbolt if he wants to go for that, which is awesome. And he is going to go for said Thunderbolt. So we get a free Great Tusk into Ground Resist Slithering, which is awesome. Azu's going to come out and take a big knockoff. I wanted to knock off like a helmet off of the Slitherwing if it was more defensive. But we see it's actually a choice band Azu, and I'm glad I knocked that thing off because that means my Azumarill can take it on much, much easier. It's going to be forced out here after taking a little bit of helmet. As I just rest up, I need to keep this thing healthy. It is such a good check to the moon, to the Slitherwing, all those things. So we have to be very, very careful about how we, play our Azu and use it in this game. I'm going to go hard Glamora on the rocks, and I'm going to elect to get up my Spike right here. In hindsight, maybe Earth Power would have forced a little bit more progress. Again, he doesn't really have ground resist, and if I can catch that Goldango coming in and chip it down, it becomes so much less potent and threatening against my team. This next turn, I am going to make the pivot out into my King Gambit right here, as he does just go for a Make It Rain, I believe. Again, I probably could have taken a hit from this thing, unless it was like Specs, but I didn't necessarily want to, if that makes any sense. Torkoal's going to come out here. It's going to take the spike damage. I'm going to make the double into Great Tusk. Reason being, even if I got out my rocks right there, he just spins them away, potentially, unless I go Pult. And if he, what do you call it? Switches in on me like Kowtow Cleaving or something like that, it's not going to really take any damage. I'd rather get in my Tusk and put on some more immediate pressure in this way. As right here, he is going to be forced out because of that attack boost. I am just an absolute walking nuke right now, as the Slitherwing comes in and it takes 48. So after Spike, that is a 2-hit KO guaranteed. We're going to click the button again, as you do, and just knock out this Slitherwing. Next up, Goldango comes out, kind of tipping me off that, you know, he is... he's not even Scarf. He can't, like, no. He's kind of tipping off that he is Scarf. Sorry. I'm totally blanking right here. Because obviously I would knock him out from here. Very, very easily. I mean, even if he shook, I might knock him out. And we forced him out a little bit earlier a couple times. So I'm thinking he's probably a Scarf variant right here. I don't want to let my Tusk go down. So I make the pivot into Gambit. He makes a great play here of going for the Focus Blast. It's not really the end of the world for me. I don't need my Gambit. You're going to see, though. It kind of ends up biting me in certain ways, but not the biggest deal in the world. Right here, I'm going to go back onto Tusk. I know I take this now. And again, Headlong Rush is just a KO. As the Zoom Roll is going to come out, and KOing that thing is very, very nice, as I did not switch into it at all at that point. So, yeah. Next up, the Goldango is going to come back out. It's going to click Make It Rain right here, and it's going to do 61. And this was not a good play in the slightest. I really could not tell you why I'm saving the Glamora so heavy, but this is my main check to the moon, and sacking this thing off for no reason just didn't seem like a very optimal play, to be completely honest. So we're gonna go down here to 2, and I can't really switch around this. I can't really get off another rest as well. Like, Ozzy was basically dead at that point. I am going to get the opportunity to go out into my Tusk again, as he goes out into Torkoal, basically just sacking it off. I think I make a very aggressive play of rapid spinning to get away these rocks, so that's obviously really nice. We're also +1 speed, which means that unless he's speed boosting on his moon, he's not going to be able to come in and revenge us, and same thing with his Goldango. So we're going to force in that Sko villain, which is nice, and now I'm going to Electro Sack off the Glamora, kind of what I probably should have done before anyways, as he does click the Life Orb Giga Drain, chipping us down just a wee bit, and we're going to go ahead and go down here as he takes a little bit of Life Orb, ends up at a net 91. That's fine, though. We can just kind of go for an Accel Rock right here, knock out the Sko villain, and right here, we're in a pretty good spot. We're still not in a terrible spot as the Roaring Moon comes out. Now, I was going to say comment down below what play I should make, but I'm going to explain it in a second. I'll tell you what play I do make, right? I'm going to click Accel Rock here. Now, there's a lot of reasons why that's a bad play. Now, this could seem like 50-50, is he going to Terror or not? But realistically, if he doesn't Dragon Dance, especially because, you know, he isn't DDing if I attack him with a close combat, if he doesn't Dragon Dance, I'm okay. I can go into my Great Tusk and just click a button, and I'm doing just fine, right? And I can potentially win the game that way by clicking Headlong Rush, knocking this thing out, then sacking off my Pult, going back into Tusk, and, you know, potentially knocking it out as well. Or him not being able to lock something off. I don't know. It's weird. He could have still won with the Goldango, I suppose, actually. But regardless, my play was not to Accel Rock here, because 1, he can Terra Steel, and 2, he lives the hit and can Dragon Dance, right? And he kind of has to go for the DD at this point. If I close combat there, I don't know if he has the means to break through me well enough. I don't know. We'll see, though. He is going to DD right here, and then from here, we're going to see a Scale Shot. Now, the Scale Shot doesn't matter. He just kind of did it. I think he did it to get, like, a wider to proc, which is cool. But in my head, I'm like, it's okay. I live a hit from this thing, guaranteed, with Tusk, and I can at least knock this thing out and kind of deal with things accordingly. But what you're going to see is he's actually going to be a wider Acro set, which is a really, really interesting idea. Something I hadn't thought of. I think the Scale Shot, seeing Scale Shot used on Moon is definitely really, really cool. And he's going to miss this next one. I'm not even going to knock him out. I think I forget to Terra, which doesn't really matter because he was Scarf Dango in the back. So we lose Diff because of it, but we're going to go down, and I definitely did not play that, what do you call it? I don't think I played that endgame very, very well. In particular, positioning around that Moon coming in and sweeping. I think with my King Gambit losing it so early was also unfortunate because that was a great check to this thing. Even at +1, EQ was just like bouncing off me. absolutely bouncing off me. So I don't know. I feel like I could have played that one much better, and I unfortunately just did not. Sometimes you just have shitty games like that. I mean, he might not even pin Earthquake on this thing, being the set that he ended up bringing, unless he just didn't have Dark Stab too. So, or keeping my Azu around. I sacked my Azu to the Goldango super early and made myself very open to a Roaring Moon sweep. So, again, it happens. That's life. Just a bit unfortunate to drop our second game of the season, but we'll bounce back and we'll jump into the next one. Week 3, we're going up against my good buddy Ozar Brody, the absolute GOAT. I mean, most of the graphics on the channel are via Brody, like our team builder slides for Wi-Fi. Our logo itself is a Brody logo, like great stuff. And honestly, having an absolute come up this gen, he's been playing very well in a ton of different places. He played well in the Smog Tour, and he actually played really well in this league in particular too. So I'm going to link Brody in the description below. He's actually going to be playing in BBRD League, which will be his first Wi-Fi league upload-wise in a long time. So definitely go check him out. I'd really appreciate it. Brody's a really good buddy of mine, and I'm happy to see him growing as a player and and things like that, and getting back into content creation because it's been a long time coming. But we're playing Brody this week, and obviously we lost last week, so this one is a pretty important one to kind of get our season off on the right foot. We are 1-1 right now. 2-1 is a lot nicer than 1-2, obviously. So I'm jumping into it. Brody has a really interesting team. He has like a really like balance-ish, like semi-stallish type build with just Chin Pao at the helm here to click buttons and really punch a hole and like rip through teams that have been softened up by things like Iron Hands and by that balanced core of like Corvi, Amoonguss, Quagsire. But I actually think we have an incredible matchup into a team like this. So we can kind of show off what we're rocking out with in this game right here. First up is going to be a Choice Band Dragapult. First time we're bringing Choice Band, we're Dragon Darts, Terra Blast, U-Turn, and Sleep Talk. Now, if you looked at the team that Brody brought, his Ghost Resist right now is Chien Pao, and I know on the bench his Ghost Immunity is Indeedee. So he doesn't really have a Dragapult switch in when we click that Choice Band Terra Blast. Now, he can go into his Chien Pao, but any chip on that is great. He risks taking a U-Turn or Dragon Darts and just dying. Plus, we have probably the best check to Chien Pao in the game in our Azumarill, so being able to have that in the back as well as that thing getting chipped down by Helmet, which we'll talk about in a second, means Chien Pao or Dragapult is an incredible breaker this game. We really can 2-hit KO the entirety of this team. The reason we're Sleep Talk in our last slot is because I don't really have a Sleep Absorber for the Amoonguss, so it's kind of gonna be our Dragapult. We can kind of switch in, take it, and Sleep Talk, and get some kind of button to click, which can obviously be pretty advantageous. Then we have a pretty Fizz-Def, damn near max Fizz-Def, Rocky Helmet Azumarill with just dual stabs, Rest Talk. This is going to be our check to the Chien Pao. We can also take Iron Hands hits, at least a hit very well, and revenge it with a potential play rough, or at least do a lot of damage in return. Now, this obviously does not deal with things like Corviknight, Amoonguss, Quagsire, Sylveon very well, but it doesn't need to, because I think those things are passive enough against my team that them coming in on my Azumarill as a click rest is actually kind of okay for me, because I'm forcing out the Chien Pao, and I'm able to get into something really offensive, and I don't think my team ever allows Chien Pao to be wish passed up. So once I get that helmet chip on it, it's basically permanent, if that makes any sense. Then we have a really cool set. We are, like I said, offensive Lamora is a demon, and we are rocking out with a Life Orb, 3 attacks, spiking Lamora. We are modest in this game because Brody's speed tiers allow it, and if you look at the combination of Power Gem, Sludge Wave, and E-Ball, it 2-hits the entirety of his team. Outside of maybe an AV Hands, which is also, again, unrecoverable outside of Wish Passing from Sylveon, this thing is going to be a great breaker. It's actually going to be our lead, because I think it just demolishes that Corvia, Amoonguss, Quag core so well as the Sylveon. And, we're going to be in a pretty good spot with this guy. Then we have a Yachi Berry, 4 attacks, Great Tusk. We're Close Combat, Headlong Rush, Ice Spinner, and Rapid Spin. Now, we are Ice Spinner because of, one, it hits Amoonguss decently hard. Headlong Rush does more, but Ice Spinner is also for his Salamence that he left on the bench, so we wanted something for that guy. Yachi Berry is going to be very clutch because it's going to be our main pivot into the Iron Hands, as well as it allows us, after Rapid Spin, to very much so eat up any hit from the Chien Pao, especially that Choice Band Ice Shard. We'll be able to chew it up and revenge it in return, and honestly, Great Tusk is a monster in this game. Outside of the Corviknight, he does not really have much that avoids it 2-hit KO. The core of Corvia Amoonguss can kind of pivot in between it and deal with it, but again, I think we have things, especially our Glamora, will put enough damage on one of those to where that our Great Tusk can come in and claim a kill afterwards. Then we have a Shuka Berry, 3 attacks, Stealth Rocking, King Gambit, just all stab moves. Pretty simple stuff. It was going to be our main men's check. We're also Defiant in case he wanted to be into him for some reason. I don't think he would if he brought it, but Shuka is mostly to check that thing, eat up an Earthquake, and, do some damage in return, with Iron Head, Kowtow, Cleave, and Sucker Punch for a great priority, honestly. So it's a little bit fodder for the Iron Hands, but again, if we can kind of just whittle that thing down with this, plus like T-Spikes from Glamora, from our Toxic Debris, and things like that, we're going to be in an okay spot. Then we have a Life Orb, Lycanroc, Stone Edge, Cell Rock, Close Combat, and Psychic Finks. Again, another Pokemon that just rips him. Once the Quag is a little bit chipped, it's going to be in range of a 2 KO from Close Combat. And then from there, we have Stone Edge, Cell Rock, Ice, Psychic Finks for everything. Psychic Finks is great for Iron Hands plus Amoonguss. And then Stone Edge, Close Combat, Cell Rock just hits everything else incredibly hard. So, very offensive build this week, like it kind of has been for all of our games up to this point. But, that's kind of just how the team functions in general. Okay, so again, we can see what Brody brought. He brought that fat, annoying, balanced team that he has. But again, let's see if we can break through it. We're going to lead off with our Glamora, as he leads off with Quagsire. In turn 1, I'm just going to kick the E-Ball. Now, he can be a Rindoberry set. Even Spadef dies to a Life Orb Modest Energy Ball. If he's Rindoberry, he lives, but then he is super Lycanroc fodder. It puts him in range of Pult. It puts him in range of Great Tusk. It really just puts him in a bad position. And if he's not, good night Quagsire, right? So we're going to be able to knock this guy out with an Energy Ball turn 1 with the Life Orb, which is awesome. And from here, I'm in a pretty good position. If Chien-Pao comes in, I always save my Glamora because it's a great breaker. I go into Azumarill. Really, anything else, though, I can kind of stay in an attack. And outside of maybe the the Iron Hands, I might want to go out into my Great Tusk. But other than that, I got the squad to I got the moves to break through everything. Corvy's going to come out here. I'm going to look to set up a Spike, because there's not much this thing can do to me other than U-turn out, or Body Press. And then this next turn, I'm going to click Power Gem and do 57%, which is a ridiculous amount of damage to a Corviknight. Now, this tells me he's mostly Fizz Def, but that is so unbelievably strong right here, as he does take that and go for a Defog. Again, completely fine with me, because I'm just going to click another button right here, as the Amoonguss is going to come out next, but that's not really going to help right here. He does 51 with that Power Gem, and then from here, I'm just going to click Sludge Wave, and he can make the pivot to Corvi, but again, he's in range at this point. There's not much he can do to pivot around this Pokemon. He is basically forced to give me something, or give me a ton of damage on that hand. He's going to go down right here. Amoonguss is going to come back out, take 63% from that Sludge Wave. And this next turn, I'm just going to Sludge Wave and knock him out. And, be in a good spot. We're down at 6%. We die this next turn, but I'm also in a good position in the sense that whatever comes in revenges me, it's either the Sylveon, which I can just Sludge Wave and kill, force into a Wish, and, go from there. Or what I can do is let this thing die to prevent any kind of setup or any shenanigans in that sense, and get up a T-Spike as the hands or the POW kills me. And probably the POW, there's no reason to go in the hands and take all that damage. So POW's going to come in. I am going to sack this thing off to a Sacred Sword. He is also Terra Fighting on the Chien-Pao, by the way. I think he changes to Terra Dark after this week, or after a couple more weeks. But we got up our T-Spike, which is phenomenal, because now even things like Azumarill, even though we're physically defensive, don't have a good switch in. He's going to go into the Iron Hands, which proves to be a fairy resist because this Pokemon's so bulky. But he's also pretty physically defensive right here. He is going to go for a Thunder Punch on my Great Tusk coming in. Again, this is fine. I'm going to click Rapid Spin here. I'm a little greedy. Reason being is I wanted to outspeed the POW, forcing the Sylveon, something of the sorts. I don't know, get off some damage that way, opposed to not getting off any damage on the Sylveon before I die and sack this thing off. So I clicked the Rapid Spin because I know I also can live a Ice Shard from the Chien-Pao pretty easily, even if I get to -1 the turn after. He does reveal Rest right here, which is a little scary, but he shows a Chesto Berry, showing he's not Rest Talk. We're going to do 73 with this next Headlong Rush, which is a lot of damage, as an Iron Defense comes out. But thankfully, since we just clicked Headlong Rush that turn, we're not going to overplay. We're able to knock out the Iron Hands, which could have actually been very scary at this point, if you look at his team. Next up, he's going to go Chien-Pao. I'm just going to click Close Combat. No reason not to, as he Terra Fightings. He is going to Sword Stance right here, and again, I have no reason to play around this. I'm just going to Rapid Spin for a little bit of BM. Probably could have just Headlong Rush there, but not the biggest deal in the world. We knock it out, and from here, game is wrapped at this point. Sylveon comes out. I'm not going to try and save diff or anything like that. Too early in the season to do so. We're not going to choke into like a Calm Mind Sylveon. So he is going to knock us out with a Hyper Voice. We just go into our Pult Dome, we click Choice Band Terra Blast, and we knock out the Sylveon, and we're kind of stringing together a little bit something here. Week 3, and we are, I believe, 2-1, which is, again, really nice. We're able to kind of swing momentum back in our way after losing that Week 2 game against Hayes, and, kind of put our best foot forward. Hopefully we can keep the winning going next week. Week 4, and we're going up against the Grandmaster D-Ray, and he has some scary stuff. Obviously, he's rocking out with a Flutter Mane, which is never a fun thing to deal with. Our team in particular does not deal with Flutter Mane very well, but again, I can't really say that like anybody else has ever dealt with Flutter Mane very well. It's insanely broken, and it's banned everywhere for a reason at this point. But we gotta play it. This was back in like December, so we didn't know just yet, or we at least in November we didn't know. Or at least want to try it out. But he also has Garchomp, Cyclizar that cannot Shed Tail, so keep that in mind. We have a Scream Tail, a Palmot that cannot Revive a Blessing, so lots of ifs, and ifs. And then also an Iron Moth, which I believe might be his Terra Captain. I'm not 100% sure what his Terra Captain is, I'll be 100% honest. But let's go ahead and show off the team that we are walking with. This week, we again have a Choice Band, Dragapult. Ghost is just super free in this game. Outside of the Cyclizar, which is Ghost Immunity, we just click Terra Blast against his team. Dragon Dart, 2-turn Sucker Punch is obviously going to be really, really cool tools as well. Choice Band, Sucker Punch might come clutch against like a, what do you call it? Scarf, Flutter Mane or something of the sorts. Then we have a Heavy Duty Boots, 4 attacks, Great Tusk. Again, another Pokemon that does incredible in this game. Very, very strong in the matchup, and we kind of just can click buttons throughout the whole thing. Then we have an AV King Gambit. This is actually going to be our main Flutter Mane check. We just absolutely eat up Mystical Fires for days. Same things with Moonblast, especially from Scarf sets, which I think is the best against my team in particular. He could be Specs, but then at least have Pult to revenge it, and Scarfers and things like that. Then we have a pretty physically defensive, but pretty speedy Rotom. It is going to be our main switch in and check to that Garchomp. We're able to Will-O-Wisp it, and then kind of Leaf Storm it down, chip it down, put it in range of a Aqua Jet, a Sucker Punch, or even a Cell Rock if it takes way too much chip. And then we're just kind of dual styles, Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, grab some momentum, be a nuisance, spread burns, you know, the Rotom things. Then we're finally bringing Offensive Azu. We have a Choice Band set. Again, an incredible breaker in this game. Aqua Jet endgame is very, very possible and viable if you look at his team. We really just have to chip down and get rid of that Cyclizar and that Scream Tail. And then from there, all of his Pokemon like die to the move Aqua Jet after some chip. Then we have a Life Orb 3 attacks, sorry. Lycanroc Dusk, which again, very, very strong in the matchup and very good offensively here. Oop, I clicked the wrong button. Alright, let's go ahead and jump on into the game. You can see what D-Ray is rocking out with. He is going to lead off with Cyclizar as I lead off with my Dragapult. And in my head, I'm like, okay, if he's Scarf, I don't die to a hit. And if he's not, then he has to switch right here. As he is actually just going to stay in and click Knock Off and knock off my band and outspeed me. And I'm like, okay, word. He's Scarf. That's good to know. I'm going to get out of my Lycanroc. I'm going to go ahead and get up my Stealth Rock right here, as the Scream Tail is going to come hard in. I'm going to make the pivot out of my Gambit, and Dazzle Gleam is going to do nothing. But you're going to see that I'm a little bit underprepared for this thing. As it wishes up, I take Helmet, and I actually do not beat this thing 1v1 unless I get a crit right here, as he is going to double Wish for some reason, which gives me momentum. I don't think he knew that you can't stack Wishes. But right here, he is going to protect, but I have a pretty free Wisp right here. I am going to Volt Switch out, expecting like the Volcarona to come in to not let this thing get chipped down. But it's okay, we're going to just kind of make these little pivots here in and out, as the Gambit is going to not really want to take any more damage so they can check the Flutter Mane well, as I'm finally going to Will-O-Wisp this Scream Tail. Again, just kind of trying to nullify his leftovers, as I really don't deal with it all too well. As right here, I do get Encored into the Will-O-Wisp, so I'm going to kind of have to be forced to switch out here this next turn, as he does make the double into Iron Moth, expecting me to stay in, but it's not happening. I'm going to go into Gambit, and this thing is a big issue. We're going to see that it is going to be leftovers, so I think that kind of confirms that it is Terra, because you don't want to be Black Sludge on Terra sets and things like that. But we're just going to Couch Out Cleave. I live any hit from this thing. I don't want to see it sub too, and the leftovers kind of tips me off a little bit. So I'm going to Couch Out Cleave twice, and again, just to stun a little bit. We're going to go ahead and Sucker Punch and pick this thing off after. Now, granted, I did live any one hit that thing wanted to go for. It made me a lot weaker to Flutter Mane if you wanted to attack me, but I do have double Prio in the back, as well as this right here, and my Dragapult should outspeed any non-Scarf set. So I'm not super worried about Flutter in general, because my team offensively pressures it so well. Palmot's going to come out, as I am just going to go out in a Great Tusk, because he actually clicks the Agility, which is interesting because I don't really think it does much to me. As he's going to make the pivot out in a Scream Tail, knowing that Ice Punch doesn't really do anything. And you see, I do 43 right here, and especially with that burn, that is a 2-hit KO, but not really, because I'm an idiot, and in my head I'm like, okay, this thing's bulky, so I outspeed. Again, early gen, don't make fun of me. I forgot that it was that fast, and it just knocks me out there. So we lose Great Tusk, which also makes Palmot very, very scary into my team. Just throwing that away was not very, very smart. So unfortunately, we are going to go down there. I do go Pult here, and I'm able to revenge the Screen Tail with a Terra Blast, but again, that's life. And right here, Cyclozar is going to come out, and we see that it's Boots. So D-Ray is like ape-brained me. I remember being so annoyed about it in the moment. D-Ray knew that I was going to aggressively creep against him in order to get like Adamant Pult and things like that. I think we're Adamant Pult, right? Let me double check. Yeah, in order to get like Adamant Pult, I would creep him creeping down to Lycanroc. But, or something similar, whatever my speed tier around then was. But, no, he just went max speed Cyclozar because he knew I was going to not be any, he knew I was going to aggressively creep him right here. Because now the Cyclozar are just going to kind of be a big nuisance. Excuse me, as I get a slow Volt Switch out as he rapid swings my Rock Sway. Again, that's completely fine. I'm just going to sell Rock. If he wanted to give me that, he could give it to me, and I'd be, you know, again, completely fine with it. As we are going to see Rocky Helmet from the Scartron. I'm going to elect to get up my Rocks right here as he does Dragon Claw. This is fine, though. I'm just going to click Close Combat. I know he's probably going to set up a hazard right here, so there's no reason in not attacking with the Lycanroc. We will die, but we're going to be able to get into our Pult pretty freely. And from here, we're just going to be able to Terra Blast. I believe I might click... Yeah, I just click it again the next turn. If you want to make a really aggressive pivot into the Cyclozar, oh well. But I wasn't super worried. As right here, Rotom's going to come out. We are going to get knocked off right here. Again, already losing our items, so not the biggest deal in the world. He's going to spin away our hazards, as we do with Wish the Sky. Burn him right down. And I believe just click on Volt Switch one more time. Get nice and slow momentum out into our Azumarill, to where we can just kind of just click the play rough button and pick ourselves a KO. He can't really switch out. He also doesn't want to let me belly drum, which is also totally fair because that did just win from this point if I was belly drum. But out comes Palmot. I'm going to sack off my Rotom. No reason not to right here. We're slowly going to put him in range of an Aqua Jet anyways, but we do have our Dragapult still. And this is going to allow us to Terra Blast, knock out that guy. Then out comes Fluttermane, and it's going to outspeed us with what I presume to be a Scarf. I think he showed me afterwards it was Scarf, but I didn't know at this point, depending on how bulky you were, or how aggressively he's trying to call my creeps. I am able to take 2 of these hits though. And then Sucker Punch into Iron Head is going to knock out the Fluttermane. I went to that first because I wanted to Sucker to just guarantee put him in range of Aqua Jet. Yeah, that is going to be our week 4. Definitely an eventful game. Having our pulled out spell with the Cyclozar that wasn't Scarf was pretty tough, but other than that, we were able to kind of rally and bring things back together and move on to 3-1. So yeah, I'll be right back for the next battle. Alrighty guys, week 5 rolls along and we're going up against the man, the myth, the legend, John Jr. himself. He's got a very, very scary team with a Terra Poison Excalibur, a Iron Treads, I almost said Iron Moth, that's not a moth, that's like an elephant, a Chi-Yu, Corviknight, Garganacl, and Quagsire. Very, very annoying team. That defensive core of Garganacl, Quagsire, and Corby is going to be really annoying. And then those top 3 offensively are really tough for our team to switch into in general. So we're going to have to be very careful about how we deal with them. I think we got a pretty cool squad though. So we can go ahead and show it off. First up, we have our Dragapult rocking out the heavy duty boot set. We are special, just 4 attacks, pretty simple. Shadow Ball, Hydro Pump, U-Turn, and Flamethrower. Hydro Pump seems excessive for something like Chi-Yu and Iron Treads, but what it does is it allows me to 2-hit KO that Garganacl after a little bit of, you know, Spike Chip and things like that, whereas otherwise it would kind of completely wall us as a good Ghost Resist. Very physically defensive too, so he can't really go physically offensive like Dragon Darts and things like that, especially with the Corviknight and the Treads there. So I figured like a special set with Hydro Pump would be very solid. We're modest, we're boots, so we don't have to worry about hazards going up on our side, and yeah, just a really solid bot in general. Then we have a Spadef Rest Talking Azumarill. It's here to check that Chi-Yu, as well as soft check that Excalibur. Now, because we're Spadef on this thing, we do need to have a decent check to the Excalibur. Plus, the fact that he's Terra Poison means I don't really check him in general anyways, if he goes with like a Terra Blast set. So I figured Spadef was a little bit better to handle that Chi-Yu, and we can hopefully check that Excalibur elsewhere, opposed to our week 1 matchup where Ozzy was kind of a check because it wasn't Terra. Then we have kind of our check to the Cloyster, or to the Excalibur in a somewhat Fizz-Def Cloyster. Ice Spear, Rock Blast, Spikes, and Shell Smash. Now, this would be Rapid Spin if it got it. This is the game in which I realized that Cloister lost Rapid Spin, which is really, really unfortunate. But we're like a spiking, Icicle Spear, Rock Blasting set. Now we have Shell Smash if like it comes down to an endgame situation where if we get up a Shell Smash we can win, just because we're bulky. But it's not really a move that I envision myself clicking very often, or being like an endgame option. But it could always come up. Who knows? Then we have a Focus Sash to leave Lamar, Power Gem, Earth Power, Energy Ball, and Stealth Rock. We can block spin pretty easily with our, Dragapult. And if he's Defog Corvi, we can kind of pressure him into like roosting, and we can kind of infinitely keep up our rocks and a T-Spike, which is really, really important. If we can keep up that T-Spike for something like Baxcalibur pre-Terra, if it's not Boots, especially that Quagsire, that's going to be really, really nice. And rocks are going to be really important for something like Chi-Yu, because I don't think it's very threatening if it's not like a Scarf, if that makes any sense. Then we have just 3 attacks, Will-O-Wisping Rotom with Foul Play, Volt Switch with Leaf Storm. Pretty simple stuff here. It really checks that Corvi, Garg, Quack defensive core very well. Deals with them incredibly, actually. I think John also has an Amoonguss that he didn't bring, so that really helps us out a ton. We're going to be able to spread burns, just be a big nuisance. It checks the Iron Treads as well, which is really nice. Then lastly, we just have a 4 attacks, Lycan Rock with Stone Edge, Assault Rock, Close Combat, and Psychic Fang. Psychic Fang is just for that Amoonguss that is sitting on the bench right now. But other than that, Stone Edge, Assault Rock, Close Combat hits everything very, very hard. It's going to be a great way of potentially revenging that Baxcalibur in the back after a Dragon Dance or 2. But yeah, with that being said, we can go ahead and jump right back on into the battle. We are going to lead off with our Glamour. Like I said, he's going to lead off with Iron Treads. I'm completely fine with taking this Earthquake. It's going to allow me to get a ton of damage off with an Earth Power potentially, which I do get off 59%, which is awesome. And I could save this to potentially get up one a little bit later. I go into my Pult though, and I think this is a really stupid play. John had no reason to not knock off and kill me that way. Maybe I thought he was going to Rapid Spin and get away that T-Spike, so his Quag didn't go away, but it's not like he doesn't find an opportunity to do that later. I mean, he does have at least 2 other Mons, if not 3 to 4, depending on Boots, that could be immune to the T-Spike. So I think that was a really, really aggressive play by me that didn't really need to happen, in all honesty. And you can see that kind of shook me a little bit, because this next play, you think, Owen, you got a free Hydro Pump right here into that Garganackle, but I got a little bit scared, especially after I overplayed the first time. I was like, oh man, I don't want to miss, and maybe he goes into, the Corviknight, something like that. As he does make the pivot into Garg, it doesn't really take any damage at all, as I'm gonna go out and just sack off my Clamora. Another T-Spike goes out, so badly poisoning the Quag could be nice. As right here, Rotom is going to come out. I'm gonna Volt Switch, not expecting him to go hard treads, but he does, which is really, really scary right here. I'm going to make the aggressive play into Pult again. I feel like this one's not as bad. I really want to get that Quag poisoned. Like, I really, really want to get him poisoned. So going into Pult is going to allow that. Now this turn, I am going to be able to Hydro Pump, and I'm going to nab a 2-hit KO on that Garganackle on the switch-in, so he is going to be forced out, which is awesome. Corviknight's going to come out. It's going to waste a ton of my Hydro Pump PP right there, another 2. So I only actually have, I think... Did he pop his Pressure? Is he not Pressure? Is he Mirror Armor? He might be Mirror Armor for Spadef drops, actually. I didn't notice that until this just now when I'm watching this game. I've watched this game like once or twice since we've played, and the game was like a month ago, but I'm just now noticing that. So that's very interesting. I guess for Spadef drops and like defense drops on, what do you call it, Azumarill? I don't know. But regardless, Rotom's going to come out here on this Corviknight right here as the Garganackle is going to switch in. Again, I'm completely fine with just Leaf Storming, taking this thing out if he wants to stay in, or chipping something as it comes in. His Leaf Storm switching right now is Chi-Yu and Corviknight and the Baxcalibur, I suppose. So I'm completely fine with that. He's going to go right here for a knockoff. I'm actually going to elect to stay in here, expecting him to want to take out my Pult, trying to block that spin this time, and it's going to allow me to go ahead and knock this guy out. Foul Play from 1%. I don't know if that was rolling the least by the way. That's living on 1 is definitely pretty unfortunate. But out comes to Chi-Yu. It's going to show to be Boots right here, which is awesome information for me to know, knowing that my Pult does outspeed it. Azumarill is going to get burned right here, but again, we're Rest Talk, so this isn't the biggest deal here in a little bit. As he is going to get poisoned, I make the double out into my Rotom mode, expecting a Corviknight more than likely, or a Garganackle trying to recover up, but he goes into the Quag. I'm going to try and Volt Switch out here as this gets up a T-Spike, and again, this next turn, I'm just going to Volt Switch again. I don't think he should stand and give this to me for no reason. Unfortunately, he just goes to sack off the Garg, which is not the best, but, oh well, not the biggest deal in the world. We're in a close combat, knock him out, and, kind of put ourselves in a pretty good position here going forward. Corviknight is going to come out next. I am going to save this because I want the potential priority for the Chi-Yu. And I know my Pult basically is dead upon switch in. It has like one turn where it won't be dead because of the T-Spike. So we're going to save this thing, go into our Rotom. Pult switch out as he actually elects to Roost and Scout and see what we're going for. I can make the safe pivot in the Cloister though. I'm not super worried about it. Because right here, he is going to go for an Iron Defense. And I go for Will-O-Wisp and unfortunately miss. He goes for a Roost expecting us to bolt out again. But if I can Will-O-Wisp this thing, I pretty much make it null and void. It's not a real Pokemon anymore. But he is going to stay in again. I expect him to switch out now that I was trying to Willow, like, into something like the Chi-Yu, but not the biggest deal in the world. He's going to taunt right here, which is definitely interesting. As I am going to take a little bit of damage, and then out comes the Chi-Yu. I believe I just off the Flamethrower, getting off as much damage as possible. If the Corviknight wanted to stay in and try and Roost, but it's all good. We're able to get that free switch into our Lycanroc right here. And I'm going to click Close Combat, being that I know that that Chi-Yu isn't a, what do you call it? Isn't a Scarf variant, and it's Boots guaranteed. I can Close Combat and pick a KO on something. There's not much that he can do to stop it. Corviknight's at 53, this thing gets to it, KO, this thing dies. To that, plus a Cell Rock at the very least. So, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and click it again. Not to let this Quag, you know, recover up and be a big nuisance. It really does open up this Cloister in the end game too, which is another thing to keep in mind. I know I said originally I wasn't really planning on winning with Cloister, but it's definitely a possibility now, as he's going to go out into the back Excalibur. He's going to click Glaive Rush right here, as I just click Icicle Spear, doing a good amount of damage. And then, based on that damage, I realized something. I realized, oh man, he doesn't beat me with Glaive Rush into Ice Shard. I can set up a Shell Smash and kind of win this game right here, as I am going to Shell Smash up. I do live an Ice Shard from here pretty easy, and I am going to be able to take him down. Now, in hindsight, I kind of wish I had Ice Shard on this set in order to pick him off from that low range, but again, not the biggest deal in the world. We're going to knock out this guy. Out comes the Corviknight. We're going to go ahead and Icicle Spear it, and even though we are physically defensive because he is so low, we are going to be able to take him out. And then last up is that Chi-Yu, and even if I miss, I do have my Spadef Restock all in the back, so it's not the biggest deal in the world. But thankfully we hit, we're able to save a little bit of diff, and take home a nice 3-0 dub on the back of Cloister's debut. It being that defensive Shell Smash set was pretty cool, and yeah, we're able to snag it. Cool, but yeah, that was week number 5. Let's go ahead and jump into 6. Alright, week 6, we're just going up against Titans of the format. We're going up against the Jesse 504, and he has a ridiculous team. Not even synergy-wise, it's just, look at the top 3 Pokemon in this field. Tell me how you get that now that we know a little bit more about the format. He has Iron Valiant, Terra Water Palafin, and Iron Bundle, which is absolutely terrifying. Now, he has terrible Pokemon like Mousehold, which is really bad. But then he has Hydreigon, and then there's Revrim in the back as well. So there's 4 really threatening Pokemon and 2 Pokemon that don't really exist. But those 4 threatening Pokemon, man, they're enough to kind of get you shaken in your boots a little bit. We can go ahead and talk about the team that we're rocking out with in this game. We are a Boots, just 3 attacks, Will-O-Wisping Dragapult. His Ghost Resist is Hydreigon, and his Ghost Immunity is the Mousehold, which we can always just burn or just kill with Draco Meteor, depending on how we're feeling. But other than that, we kind of just click Shadow Ball the entire game. Terrago Shadow Ball just has no switches whatsoever. But especially with Bundle and Valley, it's really bad for death stats. If they're not Scarf or Boost Energy Speed, they're not going to have a good time against me. So that's going to be something that's really nice. We have a Scarf, Great Tusk, which is really, really solid in this matchup. Again, Fighting and Ground Resist don't really exist. Now, he does have one for one or the other, but if we click the right button, he's not going to have a good time. And honestly, Headlong Rush is the free one, just because Hard Hydra is pretty aggressively crazy, in my opinion. Plus, we also have a very good check to the Hydra in our Assault Vest. Azumarill, Player Off Liquidation, Ice Spinner, Aqua Jet. Also a solid check to the Iron Valiant. Also a decent check to the Palafin. Also a somewhat check to the Iron Bundle. You can always take a hit from it and at least hit it with a Play Rough and things like that, which is nice. And we have a Scarf Rotom. Great way of revenging something like a Palafin, because I don't really have like long-term answers to that defensively. Especially after like gets off a little bit of damage and then Ice Punches me and kills me. So it being Scarf is really nice. Same thing with Bundle. Same thing with Iron Valiant as well. And we also have Trick to, you know, cripple something if the situation does end up arising. And we have a Pasho, Berry, 3 attacking Spikes, Glamora. Anything but Banded Terra Water, we should be able to live. Or anything but Banded Big Fin, we should be able to live. So early game, it's a great means of getting up some hazards. It's also a Pokemon that can live a hit from Iron Bundle and retaliate and knock it out because of the bad super tough stat. And then we have a Rocky Helmet, Fizz Def, 3 attacks, rocking King Gambit. It's here to, pivot in, chip things down. It's really to kind of stop that mouse hold from ever being a threat or doing anything. It can low kick, but it actually does not even come close to killing us, even at +1. And then if he clicks Population Bomb once into us, he dies. So that's obviously really, really nice. But yeah, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the battle itself. We are going to elect to lead off with our Glamora. As he leads off with his mouse hold, I'm going to make the hard pivot into King Gambit because I don't want him to do anything, and I don't want him to exist anymore. So you see, I take 3% in exchange for Rocky Helmet Chip, and he just has to hit me 7 times, and he's a dead Pokemon. There's no way of stopping it. He could have, but I mean, look at this screen. This is comedy. I'm sorry. I understand this is, so mouse hold's such a fun cheese Pokemon, and it's a very funny Pokemon. But man, oh man, is it terrible. It's just a really bad Pokemon. So, he's going to go out into the bundle right here. I know that I live any hit, so I actually elect to stay in and get up my Stealth Rock to chip things down as they come in. There's no removal on this team, so I figured Rocks would be very nice, and then I can get off a little bit of Sucker Punch Chip and kind of go from there. I also know that he is a Choice Lock set, so I am going to go into my Azumarill and just click Liquidation. I have nothing really stopping me from that point. I know that he's Choice specs in that, and he doesn't really have a resist outside of the Hydra, or I guess the Palafin. So I really expect him to go into that Rev Room, and we're able to get off a huge Liquidation, show it down to 36. From here, I'm going to be able to go out into my Great Tusk, as he does make a nice parting shot play, grabbing a little bit of momentum in his own favor, getting out to the Palafin right here, as I do make the Rotom Mow pivot, knowing I can take any one hit, even if he does elect to Terra and click Banded Wave Crash, which does a ton, showing I just really don't have long-term answers to this if I want a more defensive Rotom, so I'm really glad I went with that Scar set. We do have to be careful about putting ourselves in Jet Punch range right here, but I'm going to be able to Volt Switch out, get into my Azumarill right here, as the Reverum is going to come out itself. I'm going to Play Rough right here, only do 17, make a pivot out into my Great Tusk, as he does click Junk Shot, not get the poison, and then I'm just going to Headlong Rush, pop this thing Shuka Berry, which I don't know if it even lived that from full, to be completely honest, but we're able to, take it out there. Out comes the Palafin. I'm just going to sack off my Glamora. He does go for a Wave Crash, so if I stayed in attack, they pretty much traded and killed him. But it's not the end of the world. Plus, we're going to be able to get up a T-Spike, and the Rev Room's gone, so that T-Spike is up to stay. We can go out into our Rotom, just click Volt Switch, and put ourselves in a good position again. His Great Tusk's going to come back out, as the Valiant's going to be forced out. And he is going to Quark Drive boost up some speed, but he's poisoned at this point. I can sack off my Rotom. I don't think I really need it up to this point anymore, because I know that he is a Specs bundle, so I know my Pult can outspeed it and revenge it. So that's another advantageous part of this, is I'm able to go into my Azumarill, AV, eat it up, go ahead and just click Liquidation, as right here, it's going to put him in range of poison, and even if he wasn't, I had off with him as well. Now Bundle's going to come out. I have no reason to really stay in at this point, as I am just going to click a Play Rough. He is Specs Free Strike. He does get knocked out there, and then Hydra's going to come out. It's going to have to lock in a Dark Pulse, which means it shouldn't ever beat Great Tusk unless he gets extremely lucky, and if he isn't locked, then I can, outspeed him. Hindsight, it probably wasn't the play to let my Azumarill take that damage, take that Free Strike. I probably should have just sacked off Dragapult. But again, you live and you learn. I probably should have sacked off that, then gone Great Tusk and click Close Combat and had a healthy Azumarill to take on the Hydreigon. But we didn't get punished. We would have had to get super punished and get flinched a million times, but we didn't, thankfully, and we're able to knock him out with Close Combat and take home a nice 2-0 dub. So we had that week 2 loss, but we've been moving right along. I think that was, what was it? Was that week 6 or 7? That was week 6. So week 7, we're rolling along. We only have 2 more weeks in regular season. We're super clinched for playoffs at this point, but it's kind of just stat padding and going into playoffs with good momentum. I don't want to just throw away games for no reason, so we're going to keep doing our best to, keep the winning streak alive and things like that. So, yeah, I'll be right back with the next game. Obo29 is next up in week number 7. Like I said, we are completely clinched at this point, but again, we're going to try and do our best as humanly possible, get as high as we can, and kind of run up the stats a little bit so we have some confidence going into playoffs. Obo has a pretty interesting team here. He has the Meowscarada, Scizor, the Gastron, Baxcalibur, the Great Tusk, so we're going up against the other Great Tusk, and the GOAT to Dunsparce, the greatest bulky normal of all time. So we definitely got our work cut out for us this week. Let's see what we end up bringing this game. We have a Boots, Willow, 3 attacks, Dragapult, or Hex, Willow, U-Turn, and Hydro Pump. Again, once that Dodun is kind of chipped, and if we can Wisp it, it's going to be you know, chip down very, very fast. Outside of that, he does not have answers to like Willow Hex like at all. I'm not 100% certain on why we were Hydro Pump. He might have had something like a Garg in the back. I don't 100% remember, to be completely honest, and I don't really want to pull up the doc right now. But it was there for something. It was there for something. Then we have a Yachi Berry, just 4 attacks, Great Tusk. Again, very, very solid. Yachi is to take a hit from the Baxcalibur, which is Terra Poison, just like John's that we played earlier this season. And then we can knock it out with a Headlong Rush if it's Terra Poisoned up, or Close Combat. If it's not, we're probably just going to Headlong Rush it, though, if I had to imagine. Very, very strong Pokemon in this game. If we get a Rabbit Spin up, honestly, and some things are chipped, we can just win with this thing being 4 attacks. We have a Focus Sash leading Glamora, Sludge Wave, Energy Ball, Spikes, and Power Gem. So just dual stab Spikes, E-Ball. Again, does really, really well in this game. If he wants to try and, you know, take us on with that Tusk early on, he's going to have to attack us, let T-Spike get up, and then take a, you know, strong Energy Ball. He does have removal in the Scizor, which is a bit annoying as well, but honestly, offensively, we're good enough as is, and if we can keep a T-Spike up, we'll be in a pretty good spot. Plus, he always has to risk us being Defiant on our Kingambit if he wants to try and defog hits away, or things away and stuff like that, which is nice. Then we have a very similar set to when we played John, but this time we are packing the Ice Shard in a pretty defensive Shell Smash and Cloister, Icicle Spear, Rock Blast, Shell Smash, and Ice Shard. Again, it's here to check that Baxcalibur, but if things do go the right way and Scizor is gone, we can honestly kind of win with Shell Smash. So, and also Scizor doesn't have recovery this gen too, so it's not even like it's going to stay healthy consistently, which is obviously very nice for us. Then we have a pretty, just again, bulky Rotom, Volt Switch, Leaf Storm, Will-O-Wisp, and Protect. Protect is to grab lefties back, as well as chip things down as we Willow them, which is obviously very, very nice. Same thing, it also allows us to scout for like choice moves, like a choice blocked Meowscarada, or get leftovers back from that thing, or a choice band Scizor if he wants to Bullet Punch or U-turn. We'll kind of be able to gauge from there and get a little bit of leftovers back and know how to, you know, react accordingly. Then we have a Chople Berry Defiant Kingambit with Iron Head, Kowtow, Cleave, Sucker Punch, and Stealth Rock, which is pretty interesting. This is going to be kind of our main pivot into the Meow. We're Chople Berry for that low kick. It also covers for like Superpower Scizor. I think it still gets that at the very least Brick Break. And then like a Brick Breaking Baxcalibur, and we do take a +1 Earthquake pretty well, so that's obviously nice. And it soft checks that to Dunsparce too. So yeah, that's the team. Let's go ahead and jump on into the battle itself. We can go ahead and click at a button right here, as we are going to lead that Focus Sash Glamora. As you do, he's going to lead off with the Scizor. Just click Bullet Punch, do a lot of damage as we get up that Toxic Debris, and I'm going to spike up right here. Now, if he wants to defog, I am completely fine with it. He's just going to go ahead and click Bullet Punch again. He may be banned from that damage. I'm not 100% certain if I remember or not. This is going to force out the Great Tusk, and being that I got this thing poisoned, I'm in a really, really good spot at this point. It's going to be chipped down consistently throughout this game. It's going to kind of mitigate and nullify those leftovers and even take away a little bit of health at the end of it, which is really nice for wiring this thing down for the rest of our squad to kind of, you know, do some work. In particular, our own Great Tusk, in particular, our Cloister from winning, in particular, our Dragapult from being able to OHKO and things like that, which is obviously very, very nice. Scizor is going to come out next on our Dragapult coming in. We are going to Terra Ghost right here as we do just U-turn. As the Scizor is going to be down at about 80%. I believe I just clicked Will-O-Wisp here in case he wanted to stay in. Oh no, I Volt Switch. I'm a demon. So we Volt out as the Meowscarada comes in. This is going to allow me to kind of get up those Stealth Rocks and again really start to wear things down with this Hazard Pressure. And that's kind of our main like means of break. Oh, it was an Iron Head. I'm sorry. Let me run it back a little bit. Iron Head, because we want to chip down that Great Tusk, because he can get a pretty free spin off at this point. As Pult isn't the most reliable check to it, as he does CC on our Glamora switching in. We are going to get up one more layer T-Spikes as we go down here, and he's going to take a little bit more poison, down at 32, which is awesome. Next up, Gastron is going to come in. This is perfect, though. We just click Hex right here, baby. There's no reason not to. If the Dunsparce wants to come in, it gets badly poisoned unless it's Boots, and that's also valuable information for me, because I'm going to be able to Hex into U-turn, knock out the Gastron, which also makes my Great Tusk even better this game, assuming that was more Fizz Def. We're going to go into our Rotom. He's going to get a Citrus Berry back as we Volt Switch out. And we're going to go into Kingambit. I want to punish this defog if we want to click it. And he does, which means we're going to be able to net a KO right here, because that Great Tusk is way, way too low to kind of try and switch in on us and deal with us accordingly. So we're able to knock it out right there. Out comes the Tusk once again. We're going to go hard Dragapult on a close combat because we're feeling a little bit crazy, and I didn't think a knockoff was coming there. as he is going to be able to switch out on us, as Pult is going to go for a Wisp on this Dunsparce. Again, just trying to burn it and whittle it down throughout the course of this game. Maybe I didn't need to take that Claire, but it's also not the biggest deal in the world. I don't really feel as if I need Pult at this point. And I definitely didn't want my Great Tusk paired, as I'm going to be able to get into it on a Shadow Ball right here and just click Close Combat. There is nothing stopping me from picking up a KO right here, as we do knock out the Meowscarada, which is awesome. Excalibur is going to come out here, and we're kind of put in a sticky situation, right? Instead, I don't really want to let this thing set up for free, as things can get out of hand really, really fast against this guy. And I do know that even at -1, I do live an Ice Cold Crash with my Yachi Berry, so I'm going to elect to actually click Headlong Rush, which seems a little bit interesting, but I can Headlong Rush and put this thing in range of like an Ice Shard or a Sucker Punch from Gambit or something of the sorts, and still keep my Great Tusk for that Dunsparce in the back, because it is kind of my main means of breaking through that thing, as it's very, very tough for me to deal with. So I am going to click Headlong Rush. He does Ice Cold Crash. We just have to dodge a flinch, which we do. We're able to knock out Big Excalibur here, take it down, as the Great Tusk is going to come back in. I like to just sack off my Dragapult. I don't really need it for anything. I think he Rapid Spun trying to get like a speed boost to see if he could do something offensively, which makes sense, but I don't really have a need to keep my Dragapult, and it obviously prevents any kind of shenanigans like that. And we're going to be able to kind of just, you know, whittle him down. He does go ahead and Close Combat here on us switching. I'm not 100% sure why. I think he said he was playing for Choke or something like that. But if he was doing that, probably Rapid Spin is your best play, but even then, you're poisoned and you're getting chipped. He's only got one more turn of it. You can just go out into our King Gambit and click Sucker Punch. Even if he outplays our Sucker Punch and gets up rocks, it's not that big of a deal because he dies to poison. Anyways, we're going to be able to Iron Head this to Dunsparce, and again, it's kind of just, we're going to try and whittle him down and get a free switch into our Great Tusk. There's no reason for me to play aggressively and try and get into it right away. I want to get in my Great Tusk, and I want to click Close Combat for free, but obviously if I take a hit with my Tusk at whatever it is, 18%, I'm gonna die, and I'm not really playing for diff at this point. I'm definitely not gonna try and stunt and save diff in this specific scenario. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of sack off our King Gambit in order to get a little bit of chip. I sucker getting a little spicy there, which I probably didn't need to do, but we're able to sucker him right here, and he's obviously in range of a close combat, especially because he is leftovers, not like a Chocolate Berry variant or something like that. So, and even if he was, we would be able to pick him off with Place Charter or road him afterwards. But regardless, we're going to take him a 3-0 dub here against Oboe. Pretty simple game. The early hazards chipping down things like the Great Tusk and the Gastron really put us in a good position. And then Great Tusk just like had an offensive, just monster behemoth of a matchup. Again, we were just 4 attacks Yachi Berry, and it just cleaved through this team. So, kind of showing like the prowess that this Pokemon can hold and how strong it is. So, yeah, that is going to be week number 7. I'll be right back with week 8. Alright, week 8, final week of regular season. We're going up against the Rage, and I think this is a very important game for him, if I'm remembering correctly. I think he had to win to make playoffs. So it was very important for him. For us, again, not super stressing. I kind of just brought a really quick team in case, 1, we did lose and we ended up playing him early in playoffs. 2, we're obviously already clinched. But like I said, we're not trying. I hate when people make that excuse, you know, and they're playing a game, they're like, I'm not really trying, you know, it don't matter if I lose. But then if you win, you're good. We're definitely sweating the game, right? And we would definitely want to win. And in this matchup, he's got a pretty scary team in particular. He has the Quackleval, the Sandy Shocks, the Screentail, so many complex names this gen, especially on his team. Skeledirge, Roaring Moon, and Goldango. Actually, a full Gen 9 team he brought this week. Now, obviously, he had other Pokemon in the team, but it's pretty cool that he has only Gen 9 mons in this final week. But we can show off the team we're rocking with. You can see his team, he did not have a Ghost Resist. It's Terra Water Skeledirge, so he can't even Terra into a Pepper versus Ghost or anything like that. No Ghost Resist on that team, Insight. I know Roaring Moon versus Ghost, guys. You don't have to tell me in the comments, but it does not count. Especially because Draco and Pulse kind of just rock it. That's the reason we're double stabbed, by the way, is I don't want to drop my special attack in certain instances and let something set up in my face, like a potential, what do you call it, Quackleval if I'm in a bad position against that guy, or a Roaring Moon if I'm in a bad position against that guy. He can't live a Draco at -2 or -4, something like that, you know, do some damage to me. There might be some instances where I don't want to click Draco, but 99.999% of the time I'm going to be Shadow Ball in this matchup. It's such a free click in this game, especially with the Terra Ghost. It's just an absolute nuke on this team. Then we have a Fizdev Rocky Helmet Roll. It checks things like the Quackleval as well as the Roaring Moon, and it's not Terra Moon, so we don't have to be, you know, super conscious of that. And just these 2 options in play where if I spin, I hit the whole team very hard. We have a Chople Berry, pretty split def, King Gambit. It's going to be our rocker again. Dual Stab, Sucker Punch, rocks. Pretty simple stuff. It checks the Goldango to a certain degree. Yeah, it's a pretty strong Pokemon. We are Supreme Overlord this game because Defiant didn't have any great applications. So if things start dying and we need a really strong Sucker Punch in the end game, we do have that option. We have an Assault Vest, Great Tusk also. As a nice, like, soft check to something like Goldango. Not a great check. It's a very strong Pokemon, but we do take hits generally well. We also take hits from the moon, from the Sandy Shocks, things like that, which is awesome. Then we have a Focus Sash and Glamour. Again, if you look at his team, he actually doesn't have any removal on this squad here. So if we get up Spikes and T-Spikes, things are looking pretty good for us. We're going to be able to chip things down pretty immensely. Power Gem, Earth Power, Dazzling Gleam just hits things very, very hard on the squad that he ended up bringing. And then we have a Life Orb, Lycanroc, Cellrock, Sucker Punch, Play Rough, and Stone Edge. Sucker Punch is great for that Goldango, especially because they don't have a great matchup into it. Play Rough is for things like the Quackle Ball and Roaring Moon. And then the Cellrock kind of hits everything else very hard, as well as Stone Edge. Now we do have to be very careful about like Screen Tail plus like Sandy Shocks. They kind of check us very well, but other than that, we actually cover this team very well with Lycanroc. And I like the dual priority option, especially because I don't like my Goldango matchup like at all. It's a very scary Pokemon to like team, as evident in the last game where we played a Goldango Roaring Moon team. But let's go ahead and jump on into this guy. We're leading Sash Glamour, baby. I know I said I brought more offensive sets for the season. I did. But also, the Sash like lead hazard set is so good. We're just going to get up a Spike and let it die. I'm completely content with having one Spike up, and I didn't really have a great Sandy Shock switch in anyways. So I'm going to be able to get into my Great Tusk now. Knowing I live the hit, I'm going to go ahead and Headlong Rush, crit this thing, and do 60. So it's very Fizz Def. But I didn't want to risk it being faster because it very well still could have been very Fizz Def and very much so faster than me based on that damage. And I don't want to make the same mistake I made against D-Ray in the last game, where I died. So I am going to take Rocky Helmet. So again, more good information to know as he does go ahead, I believe, and just Dazzling in there, trying to catch me staying in, which, to be fair, I've done once. I am going to get up my Rocks here on Protect, so that's just a net positive, amazing turn for me. I'm going to get paired on a T-Wave the following turn. Dazzling Gleam's going to pop, but I'm going to be able to knock it out the turn afterwards. My King Gambit is essentially useless at this point, unfortunately, but not the end of the world. Sandy Shock's going to come out. Gonna take Spike, Rock, and then a Fallen 1 Sucker Punch, I guess is the terminology for that guy. Bringing down the Sandy Shock is really low, which is really nice for me. I'm gonna go into my Pult, Terra Ghost. He turns out to be a Scarf set, but we're gonna be able to knock him out here with Shadow Ball. Out comes Goldango, and this is tough, man. I was looking at my team and I was like, man, if this is Scarf Goldango, I have a really, really tough time into it. And as good as Dragapult is in this game, right? As strong as this Pokemon is, I feel like I need everything else more. My Great Tusk is one of the only Pokemon that can take a hit from this thing. Sucker Punch kills after another Rock and Spike switch in, and Azumarill is needed for Quackle plus Roaring Moon. I really do believe that. So I actually elect to stay in and kind of either sack this off to a Scarf Goldango, or call his bluff in the sense that he's not going to be Scarf and he's kind of just bluffing it. So he's going to take that Rock and Spike, and I would outspeed and Shadow Ball and kill him. So I think he was trying to bluff there that he was Scarf, which is fair. And if I was in a better position, I probably would have gone King Gambit if that was alive and, not risk that. But again, it was more so a matter of, like, not me just calling that he wasn't Scarf and bluffing. It was more so me thinking, like, okay, Holt is good here, but I feel like I need everything else more, if that makes any sense. So, out comes the Skeledirge next. I'm actually going to switch out and save this. I'm going to go hard into my Great Tusk, and I'm just going to start clicking Close Combat because I don't need this to win anymore. What I need it to do is I need it to chip this thing in range, especially because it's not a Ghost type anymore, of my Terra Ghost Pult. And he's not going to be able to slack off out of range because he only has 8 and I have Close Combat plus Headlong Rush. And either one of them works completely fine, to be completely honest, to chip this thing down. One Headlong Rush or Close Combat does put him in range of a Choice Specs Terra Ghost Pult. And that's going to be our main goal right here, as he does slack off, switch out right here. He's going to take a little bit of damage. I'm going to Headlong Rush, knock out this Mence on the switch, and it was a Boost Energy set, so I'm assuming like DD Acro. Dirge going to come back out. I figured maybe he was trying to get in Quackle, and I would have had to go Azu there, but again, not the biggest deal in the world. He's just going to knock me out with a Shadow Ball after, I think, a couple more slack offs. Let's see. There we go. And then we're going to get into Repult. Click Shadow Ball, knock this guy out. Quackle comes out next. Not super worried about this guy. I'd rather him not set up a bulk up on a choke. So I'm just going to Shadow Ball. If you Scarf, oh well. Then we'll go into a Azumarill and beat it afterwards. But yeah, we're able to take home a nice 3-0 dub, again, on the back of Dragapult just having no Ghost Resist on the opposing side. And again, showing why Terrapult is just so unbelievably brain dead broken. And if you're playing in a draft league and you're running a draft league, you're making tiers, things like that, please ban Pult from Terry. please ban Pult from tearing. And it's just, even in this format where I think it's even like extremely resisted and restricted, and you know that you're going to be playing a Terra Ghost Pult, it's still so unbelievably good. So yeah, that is going to be our week 8. We can jump on into playoffs. All right, round 1, we got Jesse 504 J-Bear. We were the 2 seed. I believe he was the 7 seed. Amel got 1st seed in this playoffs. And yeah, it's a pretty scary rematch, but funny backstory time. Me and Jesse were sitting in call. It was Monday night. The matchup just got released that day, and he said, "Hey man, run it or you're pussy." And I said, "You know what? I've never been pussy before." So we took our old teams and we ran it again. I'll show you my old team again just to show you, but this is going to be a pretty funny matchup because like we kind of know what each other brought last time. Now we don't have each other's pace and things like that, but we're very familiar with the teams that we played against last time, right? So we have our, special Pult, which does incredible into Ghost Immunity Mousehold, and Ghost Resist Hydreigon. And our Scarf Great Tusk, our AV Azu, pretty offensive. We have our Scarf Rotom, Pasho Glimora, and our Rocky Helmet Fizdef King Gambit. Again, same exact squad as last time that we rocked out with. Same one. And I'm pretty sure Jesse did the same thing, unless he bamboozled me. But based on how the game went, I don't think he did. But yeah, we're going to jump into it. Just like last time, our plan is to lead off with Glimora. And this kind of like shows like us kind of knowing what each other brought and things like that. In my head, one, I wasn't really calculating this turn. I was like, we're on Pasho, I'm good. But he led this instead this time, and instead of clicking flip turn like a normal human being, on like a sash set or something like that to not die immediately, he's actually going to Terra and Wave Crash and knock me out through my Pasho Berry, which is genuinely hilarious. So we're actually already playing down this game. We're going to be able to Volt Switch out here as he's going to go Rev Room, get rid of the T-Spike. So no T-Spike this game also, which is really, really bad. So not the best start for your hero. But I'm going to get out my Pult. I'm going to Terra Ghost and just Shadow Ball. Like I said, there's not really an answer to it. If he goes Mousehold, again, I'm completely fine with that. I'm just going to Wisp it. But it doesn't really threaten me. He's going to Low Kick, predicting the King Gambit like last time, so he doesn't immediately die. And again, it kind of just shows the mind games in like a rematch and things like that. And again, this was a very low stakes game. We played this in call, we're messing around. I kind of wish that I recorded this one live at least for you guys, because I think it was a really funny game. But this next turn, I'm just going to U-turn. I'm not super worried about Mousehold. Now I'm going to go into King Gambit, and this Pokemon, that's a 3% bite from... It looks like I'm playing against a Little Cup Pokemon, and it's doing the damage of a level 5 Pokemon as well. Like, that's very sad to see that damage. He almost healed me, so he's going to take a little bit of damage. He's going to do Low Kick for 25%, so I'm just going to get up rocks. Now, if he wants to tidy up, that's fine. I can get up my rocks away later. I'm just going to attack it from this point. We're going to knock it out with the Kowtow Cleave, and Mousehold is once again dead to King Gambit, who kind of stuffs him a little bit. Iron Bundle's going to come on next. I'm going to make a read and go out into my Rotom. I know that he specs from last time, and I don't think he's going to click Freeze Dry. And if he does, you got me. But we also have a lot of chip on that Palafin already, which is also good. And we know he's banded. So he's going to go ahead and switch out right here. I get a very, very free Volt Switch. I think I go out into my Azumarill. And again, there's not much on his team that switches into Azumarill very well. He is going to make that Rev Room play. I believe I just Liquidation, calling him out. Rev Room's going to drop, which is also awesome for the rest of our team. Next up, Bundle's going to come out. I'm going to call that Freeze Dry, go into my King Gambit. If he Hydro Pumped, he Hydro Pumped. Not the end of the world. This is going to allow me that opportunity to get up my rocks, and now they're there for the game, which is great. I'm going to just stay in and sack this thing off. Jesse actually kind of overplays a little bit and goes for a U-turn. He had to lock Fire Move to kill me, otherwise I just chewed that, and that also means that he has Fire Move in this matchup, which I'm not too sure he'll actually have. So I'm just going to go ahead, I believe, and just click Iron Head. There's not a resist on this team, and that Rocks and Sucker Punch is going to be enough to take out the Bundle, which was a huge threat to our team. Valiant's going to come out. I'm not letting this thing set up a Calm Mind. I learned from my Smog Tour game a couple weeks before this one happened, and I'm just going to go ahead and Iron Head and try and prevent that. Now I'm going to be able to go into my Azumarill, eat up that Moonblast, and then just click Liquidation. I didn't want to miss my Play Rough and then get 2 KO by like a Thunderbolt or something like that. So I was just going to Liquidation into Aqua Jet twice. If not, kind of deal with it accordingly from there. He's going to go into the Hydreigon, lock Dark Pulse right here, or if not lock Dark Pulse, click it again this next turn. If he's not locked, I outspeed him anyways. So that means I get to go into my Great Tusk. I'm just going to Close Combat. I'm going to knock out this Valiant. Next up, he's going to go out and do his Palafin. And Jet Punch does indeed kill me. Hot take. I'm going to go Pult. You're going to see this is actually almost a throw, kind of. I take a ridiculous amount from Jet Punch, and I get 2 KO'd. Now, at least in the moment, I thought this was a throw of like, oh my god, now if I get crit, I lose. But in hindsight, if I got crit in general, I lost whether I decided to sack Rotom or this. And I think that Rotom is better so that this thing can't lock Wave Crash in a little bit and win. If that makes any sense. Where now I can come into this guy. If I don't get crit, I Volt Switch out. I get momentum on the Hydreigon. I just click Play Rough or Close Combat. Or I just Play Rough with my my Azumarill. Whereas Dragapult loses to kind of both of these Pokemon. So I guess I think I made the right play in hindsight, but at the moment I was a little scared. We didn't get crit, thankfully, as you see by the length of this video, as we Volt Switch out, kill the Palafin. Then we're just going to go into Azu and, you know, hope for the best. I believe he just Dark Pulses. I think he gets the flinch once. He needs a lot of them. On top of that, he needs a lot on the, what do you call it, the Great Tusk, but we're going to be able to live. Take him out with an Ice Spinner, not have to risk a miss, and yeah, take home a nice little dub here in round 1. Pretty funny game. I know Jesse was pretty burnt out on Mons and like just very busy at the time in general, so he wanted to run it really quick, and like I said, I ain't never been scared, so we ran it with the original teams. Don't worry, for the next couple builds, we do have new squads, and yeah, let's move on to semifinals. Alright, semifinals, we're going up against my boy Del D-Double. He had a great season. He has a pretty scary Iron Valiant, like Sand Houndstone team with things like Terra Chomp and things like that. Now, thank God it's not a Terra Valiant. We've got Valiant twice, and it has a phenomenal matchup into me. Like Terra Fairy just 6-0s me. So I'm really glad we didn't get that twice. Now, it's still very good into me in general, but I'm really glad we didn't. He's Terra Steel Garchomp, which is something we're going to have to keep in mind. Still a very good Terra Captain, obviously. And then he has things like the Frostlash, the Rotom, and the Tyranitar obviously set up the sand and things like that. So let's go ahead and jump in and show off our build here. First up, we do have a Terra Ghost Choice Band Dragapult. Again, incredible in this game. His Ghost Resist is that T-Tar. And that thing takes like a U-turn, and if hazards are up and things like that, it's not really taking those hits anymore. We're definitely not going special in this game, obviously, with the T-Tar existing. So being able to go Adamant, Choice Band, Dragon Darts plus Terra Blast, and then Sucker Punch for, you know, things like Houndstone if they outspeed us, or things like a Scarf Frost Slash, or like if we think it's gonna like Ice Shard and pick us off or something like that, or even like a weakened Garchomp or something of the sorts. Like, this Pokemon is incredibly strong in this matchup. He really does not have counter by the Choice Band hold. Then we have an AV Azumarill. This is going to be our Valiant check. It also checks things like T-Tar. It also checks things like Chomp. It's just a very, very good Pokemon. I'm telling you, if this season did not convince you on the truth of Paldea Dex Azumarill, I need you to go take a long, hard look in the mirror, because this Pokemon is so unbelievably good. So unbelievably good. So, Azu's going to be great this game, and soft checking a lot of this team, in particular that Valiant. Then we have a Boots Intimidate Raptor. Again, really hurting that it does not get access to Double Edge here, but we're Facade, or Double Edge, Roost here, but we're Facade, U-turn, Brave Bird, Close Combat. Pretty offensive still, but it's meant to just function as a pivot into things like Garchomp, into things like Houndstone in particular, as a Ghost Immunity and an instant pivot, and then we can get out into things accordingly depending on what he wants to click from there. Like pivoting between Raptor and Tusk and things like that, and Gambit is going to kind of be our main way of beating that Houndstone, because it is a pretty big threat to our team, being that normal immunity, or Ghost Immunity to Raptor, but I think we got it. Then we have a Choppleberry King Gambit. Again, another great check to that Houndstone, but we're pretty offensive here. We're Kowtow, Cleave, Iron Head, Sucker Punch, and Sword Stance. I really do think that this thing can win if it finds the right position. Now, obviously, the Valiant kind of has to be out of the picture, but from there, at +2, this Pokemon can just kind of cleave through this team. Like, it's, pun intended, it can just absolutely cleave through this team. We're Chopple to take on that body press from that Houndstone, as well as like a superpower from the T-Tar, things like that. Maybe an Aura Sphere or a Close Combat from the Valiant, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. Obviously, that Pokemon is ridiculously strong. That's not why we're it, but it could come up clutch depending on how healthy we are and what his set and spread is. Then we have an AV, Great Tusk. Again, very simple stuff. Very, very strong Pokemon. He had something on the bench that it was for. It actually doesn't do much, like, AV-wise into this team, but offense... Oh, it's, Volcarona. Volcarona was really scary into my team. I think this is one of the few things I had on my team that could actually, like, take a hit. Even, like, +1, 2 Giga Drains and things like that, and deal with it accordingly. So I'm really glad he actually did not end up bringing the Volk. It wasn't a Terra Volk, so it was a little bit more straightforward to prep for, thankfully, too. If it was, like, Terra Volk, too, oh my god, this matchup would have not been good. And then, and we obviously have a Azumarill for that, too, but there's another soft check. And then We have a Focus Sash Glamora. We're actually Corrosion on this set. I do love my Spikies in this game, but I also love poisoning a Corviknight. That could have came on the bench. It did not come. But also that Terra Steel Chomp. I would much rather poison it than try and like chip it with an Earth Power as it does anything weird. I don't know. I'd rather get poisons on things. I'd rather poison the T-Tar than hit it with an Earth Power. I'd rather poison the Rotom and really chip things down and put them in range of either King Gambit or Dragapult to win this game later on, right? So let's go ahead and jump right into this guy. We are going to go ahead and lead off again. Who would have thunk it? With a Glamora. We're going to go ahead and Toxic this Rotom here, showing that he is either not max speed or we won the speed tie there. Either way, I was fine because I was Sash. Chomp is going to come out next. I'm going to make the Raptor pivot right here as he actually reveals to be Special Chomp. And that does a ridiculous amount. Special Chomp really caught me off guard here. I suppose it makes sense for the Great Tusk, but I really did feel like physical, like ST Chomp was just such a good breaker in this game. I wanted to get in on this thing as it EQ'd and instant pivot and things like that, but the Draco really puts me on the back foot here, which is really, really scary. But again, nothing that we can't deal with, right? Nothing that we can't deal with. Right here, he's going to make the pivot into the Rotom Wash. I go into my Great Tusk because I'm AV, so that was a good mid-ground by him because it covered me being Scarf as well. Though I don't think he would have died to Scarf, if that makes any sense. I'm going to make the pivot into Raptor, trying to sack it off. And you're going to see this kind of a theme this game, right? I'm going to try and sack off this Raptor like 8 times. And maybe I shouldn't have in a lot of these points, but right here, I was just sacking it off, right? I didn't want to take a Hydro Pump, so I was just sacking it. I think he maybe expected me to go Pult because I had not Terra'd, but I am not letting that thing get burned nor T-Waved. It is too damn good in this game to do so. I'm going to go Raptor here, though. And I'm going to U-turn, and in my head, I'm like, okay, now he's going to Electro Move. We're going to get a little saucy. We're going to go back into Great Tusk. We're going to see that's also a very bad play because the mid-ground Hydro Pump is very free from Del's End. Like, very free. He can definitely click as long as he's not worried about missing, which is fair with this low Rotom. And he clicks it, and we live on the imaginary Focus Sash. But that was really, really unfortunate and a really bad play by me because there's another Pokemon that was very good in this game offensively. It was a great T-Tar check. Oh, and that's another reason we were AV is because I kind of half expected Special T-Tar into, like, the Great Tusk matchup. But yeah, that's definitely not a very good turn of events for your hero. I'm kind of forced into a CC here. I can't really make any like mid-ground plays. I can't really knock or anything like that or Rock Slide. He's going to go into the Frost Blast. He's going to click Ice Beam, knock us out. But being that he clicked Ice Beam there, I'm able to go into my Pult, right? Because one, if he's Sash, I can Choice Band Dragon Darts, knock him out. Perfect. If he is Scarf, I am Terra Ghosting, so I'm not weak to Ice anymore, and I'm okay with taking that little bit of chip. And Scarf Frost Blast is not very strong. But we're going to be able to Dragon Darts. Again, we just knocked this thing out from, even if he was like max HP or something like that. And he was a Sash Shed, I talked to him after, so that's great. We're going to go ahead and go into our Raptor to try and stack it off here as we do get disabled, but he's also Terra Steel. So he's probably, he had that option anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much as he misses right here. And this is, again, very big. And again, I don't know what I was doing. I was very aggressive this game for no reason because I had my Azumarill. Now, maybe it was that I was worried about taking chip for the Valiant, which is fair. And I felt like Earth Power's coming out, or maybe I wanted to get in, you know, before Rocks. But again, Rocks weren't up. I don't know. I was a little bit over aggressive with this Raptor when it was still a very valuable tool, even at 13% with no recovery, to you know, potentially intim this Houndstone and intim this what do you call it, T-Tar, or even the Valiant or something like that in the back. And I kind of come to my senses. I'm like, yo, I can go Azumarill right here as he does Dragos again. I'm completely fine with that as he's gonna make that Rotom pivot. I just get to click Liquidation right here, and Liquidation plus Aqua Jet is more than enough to knock this guy out. Even if he was leftovers, we were completely fine. So again, no reason to overplay. Iron Valiant's gonna come out next, and this is perfect, right? This is my check to this. He's very strong. That is, it might have been Specs Energy Ball, but it only does 41. We're able to knock it out from full. Again, Azumarill really coming up clutch here. He's going to go into T-Tar. I just click Liquidation to get a little bit of chip right here as he does T-Wave. The Del Special, I've never seen him run a T-Tar without T-Wave at this point in my draft. In the short time that I've you know, been playing and knowing Del in the last, like, you know, 6 months or so, he dressed a lot of T-Tar and he brings a lot of T-Wave T-Tar. So he clicks it right here. And because of this, I want to kind of put myself in a good position into things like Houndstone, and I want to keep a little bit of health in this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a double out into my Glamora right here, trying to sack it off to the T-Tar to kind of reset offensive tempo. As he does make the pivot into Houndstone, I'll make that pivot into Raptor. And again, showing why it's very, very useful still at this point, even with it at 13%, because it's going to give me an immunity to that last respect. So I'm going to be able to intim him here. And now from here, I can kind of play accordingly and pivot around and be a big nuisance. I can go back out into Glamora as he does end up Will-O-Wisping me, which is also fair. And then from here, he is going to make the pivot out into Chomp, maybe expecting me to go out into my Raptor, but I just thought for Toxic here, I was okay with sacking this thing off, figuring out what, if he was Smooth Rock on his T-Tar or not, whatever it might be, and kind of dealing with things accordingly. And now that I got this Chomp Toxic, it's just not as big of an issue for my team anymore, right? So my Glamora, I'm just going to stay in and get up a Spike. Now, he could have just knocked me out right there. He's going to elect to get up his Rocks, which is fair, chipping things down for that Houndstone endgame. And then he's going to pivot out here as I click Spike. So maybe he didn't have Earth Power, because he definitely knocked me out from there. Even with Draco in the sand, he probably did. But we're going to get taken out the last respects. We're going to stall out that sand, which was confirmed to be Smooth Rock at this point, which means now when his T-Tar comes in, it only has this one more switch in. It's going to knock out to this Terra Blast, and then now once sand is gone, it's gone forever. Now, I don't know how likely it is for me to stall it out completely, but I'm going to be able to get into my Raptor, get off one more Intimidate, which is the important thing, as Last Respects does pop right here. I don't really feel like saving this guy at this point. I don't really have a pivot in the Body Press outside of Pult, and it's not a worthwhile trade I'm willing to make. And then I can go into my King Gambit. I know I take any hit from this thing because I am Choppa Bear and he's -1. I can just click Kowtow Cleave. I don't have to play around with it clicking Sucker. We knock out the Chomp from 65 because of the Fallen 3. And then we're able to just click it one more time. And even through Burn, knock out this Houndstone and move on to Finals. This wasn't my cleanest game, right? And I think I was bailed a few times with my Raptor. In particular, that Draco miss was very, very big because I was able to kind of keep the Raptor for Intim shuffling. Now, I don't think I lost if I didn't dodge that and kept my Raptor. But I think it definitely made my game a little bit easier, if that makes any sense. So we definitely got a little bit fortunate there. We really have to buckle down for Finals. And yeah, I'll be right back with that game. Alrighty, guys. Here we are. Finals against my boy, Brody. Big shoutouts to him. Big come up for Brody this gen, honestly. He's been playing so ridiculously well, or at least much, much better than Brody in the past. And I don't think it's mean to say that, because I think Brody acknowledges his come up this generation too. He's been absolutely grinding mons and getting so much better while doing it. So it's really cool to see him make Finals in back-to-back Classic seasons. He actually won it last season heading into Generation 9. So he's been on the come up. He's definitely been killing it. So we unfortunately have to kind of bring him down a peg, though, because we need to win the Finals. We can't let him get the back-to-back, and Kurt didn't get the season before. So we got to come up clutch here. And big shouts to Kurt as well for, helping me out and mocking me for this game, because Brody had Dell support, which is always scary. But I want to go over our team really quick, because we played Brody in, week 3 or something like that? And we kind of tossed him around a little bit with like a lead offensive Glamora. But now that Brody knows what Pokemon do in the generation, I don't think that's going to work anymore. And I think I need to kind of change my approach to the team. It's still very similar, but it's a little bit different. Now, as for Brody's team, he brought the same 6 outside. He swapped Salamence for the Quagsire. And what that means is it means like a Lycanroc Dusk endgame is super, super possible. Like, it's an incredible, incredible option. After a little bit of chip, especially from things like our Glamora, our Dragapult, our Great Tusk, we can very easily put things in range of a Life Orb, Lycanroc. And that's going to kind of be how we play this game to kind of facilitate that and set that up in the end game. Now, we're going to go ahead and look at the team. I'm going to compare and contrast with Team 1, Team 2, or this is Team 1, this is Team 2, and kind of show what we're doing. Now, Dragapult, same exact spread, right? Most of these EVs, I think these EVs are all the same exact sets besides the Glamora. And even then, it's very, very similar. Same exact spread. The only change that we made on the Dragapult is we changed Sleep Talk to Psychic Fangs. Main reason is because, 1, Psychic Fangs gives me a 2-hit KO on most Iron Hands variants after Rocks. And 2, I have another Sleep Absorber on this team. So I don't have to risk Pult getting slept. And I kind of, especially after last game and like kind of looking at Brody's team a little bit more in depth, I realized how good Pult is in this game with the Choice Band. Again, it's the same exact set, and I think Brody's going to prep for it, but I don't know how much he can really do about it. His Ghost Resist is Shen Pao, which gets blown ass backwards by a U-turn or a Dragon Darts. And same thing with Indeedee, which is his immunity. Other than that, his entire team gets 2-hit KO to Oko. So if we can position this thing, this is the ultimate wall breaker for things like the Lycanroc Dusk, because we're going to force in things like Sylveon potentially, we're going to force in things like the Corviknight, we're going to force in things like the Iron Hands, and those things are going to take, unrecoverable damage if we keep up offensive pressure. So I really do think that Pult's going to be a big key player in breaking open his team. Azu, we are the same exact spread. We are the same exact set, same exact move pool. It's a great check to the Chen Pao. It even kind of sits in front of Corvi a little bit and can honestly stall out a lot of its roosts if we need to. And it checks the Ment because we're Fizz Def. Rocky Helmet from the Dual Wing Beat will put him in range of Lycanroc and Cellrock as well, which is a really important thing. We kind of really need to value that Lycanroc and Cellrock too for that Mence in the back, because it can get out of hand pretty fast. Glamora, pretty cool set here this week. Now, originally, like I said, we were lead 3 attack spikes and just were clicking buttons against his team, right? And he doesn't have great switch into that set. But I think Brody's going to be a little bit more spit in his Corviknight. He might even be like AV Amoonguss and like have Stomping Tantrum or something of the sorts. So I wanted to go with a different approach this week, and we're actually sub-Toxic Corrosion. I'm not super worried about my T-Spike being up, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep it up. And Corrosion allows me to poison everything. Obviously, I could poison that Corviknight and that Amoonguss, and if the Quagsire came, I could always Energy Ball it / Toxic and I'll switch in and deal with it accordingly. Sub down until it's in range, even if it's a Rindo Berry set. I really do think that this set in particular is great at chipping things down, in particular that Corviknight. We force in the Corviknight, we get that Toxic off on it, it is not dealing with Lycanroc over the course of the game. It simply will not happen. And that really is like the only thing on his team outside of the hands that I can see getting, that opportunity. Same thing with hands. If I can get a Toxic off on that thing, I don't think he's going to be the rest set that he was last time. I think like an SD Shukaberry set is really good into my team. I also think that Assault Vest is like viable. Either way, I don't think that he has the move slots to run that rest set that he ran last time, like the Iron Defense, Resto, Chesto. And because of that, I think I can get a Toxic off on that thing and permanently chip it down into range of things like Pult and eventually Lycanroc Dusk, which again is kind of the main end goal. Great Tusk, same exact set. We're just Yachi 4 attacks. It does incredible. It lives a Chien Pow hit, especially if we Rapid Spin up and we're faster and we force an Ice Shard. That's going to be awesome. And it takes on the Iron Hands very well. With our Yachi Berry, we absolutely chew up Ice Punches just for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that's going to be nice. Next up, King Gambit is the exact same, except we're rocking it with Safety Goggle this time. Again, I want a Sleep Absorber. I don't want to be put on the back foot and have things put to sleep, because then things get really finicky and iffy with positioning. So we're rocking out with a Safety Goggle set in order to be able to pivot into that Moongus and get up Stealth Rock very consistently. Now we're also Defiant. We still do take like Earthquake from Mence. I think we even might even take +1 like after like not a million hazards, which is really nice because it does serve as a soft check to that. If he's like a Choice Lock Chien Pow and he can't click Sacred Sword, we do check its dual stabs, which is awesome. And things like Iron Hands, again, they're going to have to come in and they're going to have to take an Iron Head. Now, he does have a pretty free opportunity of like wishing the Sylveon into Iron Hands, and that's a way of keeping it healthy. And against King Gambit, that's a very viable possibility in general. And I have to kind of position myself to where Hands isn't always in for free on Gambit, and you're going to see I kind of play that way in the game, and it kind of leads to some weird positioning, but I'll explain it more when I get there. But other than that, it's a great mon. If Sylveon's gone, it's unrecoverable chip outside of Drain Punch, and that's not doing a lot to things like Azumarill, as well as especially Great Tusk and even like an aggressive Pult to really prevent any recovery. So that Lycanroc can thrive, and then said Lycanroc is here. Same set, we're Adamant 4 attacks, Stone Edge, Cell Rock, Close Combat, Psychic Fangs. It just rips his team. He just simply does not have a switch to this Pokemon. Really the only thing is that Iron Hands, and if we get chip in range of Psychic Fangs, it's not going to be a good time for Brody at all. So yeah, that being said, we can go ahead and jump on into it. Now, leads for this game, I actually like to switch it up and not go with the Glamora lead. I wanted to go with the Pult lead. Main reason being is if he leads something a little bit more passive, something like the Iron Hands, which isn't passive, but it isn't going to threaten me with an Oko without anything other than Adamant Wild Charge, which I really don't expect into the Great Tusk matchup. And especially with like all the helmet I have and things like that, and him chipping himself down, I think that he's going to be Thunder Punch for his electric stab. But even then, it's like a 50-50 roll, right? And I'm willing to take that trait. That, or like the Corviknight, or even the Sylveon, or the Amoonguss. Maybe Amoonguss I switch out, but Sylveon I probably stay in. I take a Hyper Voice very well when I Terra because I lose my Dragon typing and lose that weakness, and I 2-hit KO something. Like, it's very easy for me to 2-hit KO something. I even 2-hit KO a lot of Iron Hands variants if they're not Fizz Def or like very physically defensive. So if I can, have that thing come in and once I click Thunder Punch on me, Ice Punch, whatever, I can just click Terra Blast and potentially 2-hit KO it, and again, take out the main stopgap to my Lycanroc. So I figured it was the best thing to kind of put him on the back foot. I didn't expect a POW lead. If he did lead it, I had a good switch in Nazu. I didn't expect a Mence lead either, and I also don't expect Scarf Mence. Now, I would Scout and switch, but if he's Scarf Mence, that also means that rocks are going to put him in range of a Cell Rock. And that he's not as scary of a setup sweeper because he doesn't have great locking options. It means I do have to be careful with my flying resist because I want to keep them around, but I do have 3 of them. So maybe he locks like either Dueling Beat or Earthquake in an endgame, but I don't think it's his best set, to say the least. I think like a fattish DD set with boots is probably his best variant in this game. Alright, that being said, we're going to jump into it, and again, we are going to see that Iron Hands lead. Like I said, I'm completely fine with this trade, so I'm going to take off a chunk of its health with a Terra Blast if he stays in, and probably eat anything he wants to go for, outside of that Adamant Wild Charge. But he actually elects to switch Sylveon, which tells me that Brody was probably expecting a more special Pult, but in this matchup, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Ban goes crazy. He can't even int himself me with Clear Body, and we're just going to click a button. There's just absolutely nothing that he can do about it, and something is going to take a ridiculous amount of damage. Unless it's Chien-Pao coming in, and it's not coming in. It's just not, guys. So we are going to Terra Ghost, and we're going to Terra Blast, and that's 85%. So we pick a Pokemon turn 2, and again, this really helps out with that Lycanroc endgame. Not because Sylveon really took it on well, because it's was a pretty spit F Sylveon. It probably tied from 70, but now he can't wish up things like the Iron Hands, meaning any damage on that Pokemon is permanent outside of Drain Punch or potential rest, which is so clutch for me. Alright, then he's going to go into his Chien-Pao. I'm completely fine with this though. I have my answer for it in Azumarill. Very easy. I can get right out into it and take anything this wants to go for, even like an Adamant set, Adamant Band set, as you see. He could have been Ruination too, which is something I was kind of expecting, but I can always rest up. I can play very passively with this Azumarill because it's not super exploitable on his team, in my opinion. But we're going to see a Crunch there, and that did a lot of damage. And initially, I kind of thought it was banned because, man, that's a shit ton. 31, I'm max Fizz Def. I resist that move. But he wasn't banned, actually. He was actually Adamant Black Glasses, is what we learned from the calcs right there. So that's also going to help me play into this thing, knowing that it's not choice and knowing that it being banned was quite literally impossible, and he was likely like a Black Glasses variant. It's going to help me out. I'm going to be able to chip him down for 12% with our Stealth Rocks when we get those up, and hopefully put him in range a little bit later on. And we know he's not banned for our Great Test too, so we know that we can take hits a little bit better from a little bit less health, which is awesome. This next turn, I'm actually going to make the double into my King Gambit, just because I know that the Amoonguss is likely, and if he goes into it right here, I'm going to be able to get up my rocks with King Gambit. I don't worry about Spore. Stomping Tantrum does 12%. And if he clicks Spore, he loses a turn, which is awesome for me. I get to put on immense offensive pressure. If he goes into something like the Corviknight or the Iron Hands, I have switch-ins to them. And Corvi coming in, it's probably not defogging. It's either body pressing or, I guess potentially defogging. I don't think he will in the face of Gambit. Or he's U-turning, and that's fine if he grabs a little bit of momentum. But what that'll allow me to do, it's going to allow me to go free Pult or free Glamora to either get off a Toxic or get off a Choice Band Terra Blast and basically pick another KO or immensely cripple something. So I really like the Gambit play here because it's not super punishable by him right now, especially if he does make that Corvi play. Now you see, we do get a very free turn right here on that Spore. He's not going to be able to hit us there. I'm kind of realizing that, man, I'm kind of walled by this thing as he is, and if he's not Helmet, he can't really do anything to me, and I can 1v1 him very easily. So what I'm going to expect here is a Hands pivot, because I think Hands is really good into my team, and I'm going to assume that he's going to want to pressure me out with that guy and potentially get off an Ice Punch on my Great Tusk or something like that. So I try and beat him to the punch, double into Great Tusk, but he actually makes a good mid ground and going into Corviknight, which is definitely a fair play. It's not a bad play at all, because it covers more aggressive doubles like this. Corvi isn't immediately threatened by anything other than Pult right now, and potentially Glamora, but I don't know if he knows that the Toxic is coming. I mean, he might, but it doesn't also immediately 2-hit KO him. And I was never doubling Pult there, right? Never doubling Pult there. So I'm able to get into my Great Tusk right here, but obviously I'm going to be forced to switch out. I'm going to go Glamora now, as he does go for an Air Slash. I could have gone into Pult, but I didn't want to take a Brave Bird. And Glamora, if he does U-turn, it's fine. I'll get my health back with my Black Sludge, and I'll be able to either force a Toxic on something or switch out against the Mence or the Chien-Pao. Or he's going to just attack into me, and I'm going to be in a good spot. Air Slash, I assume, was because he was scared of a potential... what do you call it? A bulk up Tusk. I did contemplate bulk up weakness policy. I think that set's pretty good into him outside of the POW, obviously. But bulk up weakness policy was definitely something that crossed my mind. The only issue is that I get that you don't want to hit me physically, especially when I'm boosting up, and you don't want to take any chip and things like that. And you might not even want to proc Toxic Debris. But Air Slash isn't doing anything to Tusk either. You're a Corviknight clicking Air Slash, right? So you're really not doing any considerable damage regardless. So I get the idea. I don't think it was the best bring. I don't think it was the best bring. But it's fine with me. He only does 9 right here, and I'm in a position where I can get a pretty free sub off, right? He either stays in body pressure, showing me that he's willing to let this thing get toxic, or he's going to let it get toxic, or he U-turns out, doesn't break my sub, or he maybe scouts and roost, maybe tries to defog, something of the sort. Regardless, Glamora behind a sub right now is incredibly threatening to his team, and he might even go into Hands, which allows me to get off a Toxic right there. And again, gonna be unrecoverable chip and stuff that I can. It's gonna help me chip him down immensely. So we'll get a little bit of Black Sludge back. I am going to substitute up here, as he does stay in a body press and it does break my sub. So at this point I'm like, okay, he's willing to body press for some damage. He doesn't think he switches into this very well. I'm just going to go ahead and Toxic this thing. He also sees that I'm not going to be Toxic Debris on this turn, as he only does 24. And in my head I'm like, oh shit, he is Spadef. Like, that's not Fizz Def damage. And if he did 24, there's a chance that that's, you know, the 25 that he got the first time or whatever it was that broke my sub might have been a high roll. I don't lose anything baiting a sub right here, right? Because I can take damage on this thing and it can still function the way it needs to and getting off a Toxic on the Iron Hands. I don't need health on it. I just need to get it in on the Iron Hands and I can force a Toxic on it or something else coming in. Even if you switch it out, I'm gradually gaining back Black Sludge recovery and things like that. So I'm okay with kind of baiting a sub here to see if I can get behind it and see if he gets another low roll or even if that's just the normal roll. Because if I get behind a sub, this is a KO on Corviknight. Because that turn of Toxic plus Power Gem is going to knock him out. And I get up to essentially around the same amount of health. So we might as well bait for it and see if we can get a little bit lucky. As we are going to go ahead and substitute here. And he is going to fail to break our sub, which puts us in an incredible spot right here. I don't know what the roll was on that, but I'm just going to be able to Power Gem. And 33 isn't enough to kill without that poison. But with it, it definitely is. He's down to 17. He has to pick this as a sack. He could have saved it, I suppose, but there wasn't anything he was getting a roost off on other than potentially King Gambit or Azu. But even then, the rest of his team doesn't really appreciate this move. His Corvi is very, very low. And we can get a Toxic off of something like Hands if that's what wants to pivot in. And we're just gradually gaining leftovers back anyways. So I don't think he's going to switch around it too much. As the Hands is going to come in, like I said before, I know that I have a switch into this thing technically. But getting a Toxic on this thing is so incredibly clutch. And I don't really beat anything anymore, right? The Chien-Pao outspeeds and kills me. The Mence outspeeds and kills me, and Amoonguss, I can't beat 1v1 if he has Tantrum. I probably can't even beat it 1v1 if he has Giga Drain at this point. I can just Toxic it, which could be nice, but it's not something I think I need at this point. So I'm actually going to elect to just stay in and sack off the Glamour, just to get off a Toxic on his hands. It was also not a risk because I never miss because I'm a Poison type, which is a great addition to the game. We're going to be able to go into our Great Tusk here, and I actually Ice Spinner, which might seem like a bit of an overplay, and a couple of these plays might seem like a little bit of an overplay because of how we play them, but in my mind, I didn't want to let him the Mence for free and get off an Int him on me. And I wanted to put him in range of a Cell Rock guaranteed, right? And I also didn't really fear anything from this hand. So you're going to see it actually does click Ice Punch and stay in. And he pops my Yachi, which is nice for his Chien-Pao, but I'm not super worried about Chien-Pao right now. I just have to find an opportunity to get in Azu and rest up, which I feel like I can pivot around and do. That Ice Punch only does 19. I mean, even when we lose our Yachi, he's like not even 2-hit KOing us from here because he's not very offensive on this thing. So I felt pretty comfortable doing so. This next turn, he kind of shows he's not really going to go into the Mence right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just click Headlong Rush into the Amoonguss, which after Rocks is a guaranteed 2-hit KO. We do 55. I mean, that's a ridiculous amount of damage as he gets a little bit of Black Sludge. But right here, I mean, again, in kind of an interesting spot. I play a little bit aggressively and a little odd. The only thing that really scares me at this point is that Mence, right? And I want to make sure that I can kind of pivot around it correctly and safely. And at -1 right here, I actually die to a Dueling Beat. Now, I don't die to a Dueling Beat if I switch out and switch back in. So what I'm going to elect to do is I'm going to pivot into my King Gambit. No, I take this hit, right? Take the foul play, go down. And then I'm going to pivot back into Great Tusk and take yet another foul play. As he does stay in right here. Part of me didn't think he would. Part of me thought he was going to go into the Iron Hands right there and not sack off the Amoonguss or kind of just like throw it away for no reason. So maybe, again, it's a little bit of an overplay, I suppose, in that sense. But I still do live a Dueling Beat now that I'm not -1 from this range. And I should be able to knock him out, depending on rolls, with an Ice Spinner from here. But we're going to go ahead and click Ice Spinner. Unfortunately, not knock him out. So maybe I misjudged that a little bit. And he's going to pick us off with the Giga Drain. But again, it's not the end of the world. The Iron Hands is toxic. It's at 56%. And it's likely not a rest set. I don't think he could be Earthquake, Ice Punch, Resto, Chesto, Thunder Punch. I really don't think that set's great. And even then, he's not like a Bulk Up or a Sword Stance variant. It doesn't get Bulk Up. It's not a Sword Stance variant. So I can use Pult to click Terra Blast on it or click Dragon Darts on it. And then it's in range of Lycanroc again. So I'm not the most worried about the hands at this point. So Great Tusk really, its usefulness diminishes. It's potentially, fodder for Mence and gives it a, Moxie boost, we die to the POW after just a little bit more chip. We might even die to a crash from here right now. And we don't even 1v1 the Zamoogits very well, unless we click that headlong rush. So I was okay with kind of making these aggressive plays and getting punished a little bit for it, but it's not the end of the world, because now we can go into Pult. And what Pult does with Dragon Darts right here, because there's no more Dragon Immunity or Resistance, I ensure that Mence never comes in and is never allowed to set up. And if Mence comes in, it doesn't knock me out with any Scarf hit from here. So even if he is Scarf, I can just stay in and click Dragon Darts from that point. I can stay in and click Dragon Darts on the Iron Hands as well, very freely. And if this Gem-Pow comes in, I have a series of pivots that I can make in order to put myself in an okay position. What I'm going to do right here is I'm going to pivot into King Gambit on Ice/Dark move, as he does crunch right there. It does a ridiculous amount, 30%. We do get a Defiant, so if he was like a different Terra, maybe we could just knock him out with Sucker Punch, but what we're going to do, we're going to take this opportunity now that he has Crunch to pivot out on the Sacred Sword, get into our Azu, and just click a very, very free play rough. There's not really a switch in. If he goes into something like the Mence and dies, it's fine. If he stays in and sacks this thing, Azu did his job anyways, and we can find another opportunity to rest here soon. So we're going to play rough, knock off the Iron Hands, and this is perfect, right? Because now we're in a position when the Mence comes in, it also shows to not be boots at all. So we can go at our King Gambit, just ensure that this thing never gets up a sub, and then we win with Lycanroc, or we win with Lycanroc plus the Zoom, at the very least. So that's going to be our end game right here. He's going to dual Wing Beat, and again, I can Sucker to do damage in case he has Earthquake or something of the sorts, but there's no reason for me to choke like against like some kind of like sub DD shit. So I do just Iron Head. He does elect to DD and get up a boost, and again, he's boosted up, and if we didn't have the Lycanroc, we did lose the game from here, but thankfully, we do have the Lycanroc. We're able to knock him out. Gem-Pow can come out and Sucker Punch us, but we still have Azu in the back, so we just always Cell Rock here. We're able to pick it off and win a nice little finals game against Brody, who again had a phenomenal season. He played great. Nothing to scoff at. As, again, like I said, his growth as a player has been like immense, and I think he played this game very well. I think it's a really tough matchup for him too. Like I really think he struggled with my team offensively and like his team defensively, which is really tough when you have like a slower balance bid like Brody's. He didn't have the core to really take me on in this game, and it kind of showed. Things like Pult and Tusk, and even like our Toxic Lamore, just put his team on such an unfeasible timer. And yeah, it was pretty tough, but again, he had a great season, and we're able to take home a nice 10-1 total season, grab ourselves another championship, which is pretty cool. It'll be added to the championship playlist, which I did just make as a major ego boost. I put all the championships that we have on the channel in a playlist that should be linked below, as well as all of our Draft League movies, as this is a full season run and things like that. So let me know what you guys thought. Are we at the general consensus that Bolt should be banned from tearing? I hope so, because I feel like this season was more than enough proof that this Pokemon's brain dead, and objectively, it's still the best Pokemon in the format, especially if it's allowed to Terra and things like that. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. Again, GG's to Brody. I'm gonna link everybody that uploads that I played this season in the description below. And yeah, let me know what you guys thought. Let me know what your favorite battle run was. I'll see you guys in the next one.